Hi friends. Tonight slip into a medieval army camp under a freezing winter sky, tents flapping wildly in the icy gale, soldiers' breaths fogging like ghosts by the dying campfire's glow. From afar it's epic heroism, up close, a brutal chill that bites deeper than steel with no warm fires or fur beds, just raw survival hacks to thaw the night. Love these historical chills? Like, subscribe if it hooks you. Share your location and local time in comments. I adore global vibes. For the full chill, lights off now. Close your door tight against drafts. Shut eyes, take 3 deep breaths in, cool out warm. Feel the frost creep in, perfect. Let's uncover how those soldiers slept in tents without freezing solid. Whispers of warmth. A soldier's winter lullaby in the heart of a forgotten winter, where the wind howled like a lonely wolf across the frost-kissed fields of old England. There marched a band of weary souls clad in iron and wool. It was the year of our Lord 1347, deep in the shadow of the 100 Years' War, when kings sent their men to chase ghosts of glory through snow-swept valleys. Among them trudged young Elias, a lad of 19 summers, his boots crunching the brittle earth like the crackle of a dying hearth. Elias was no knight born of silver spoons. He was a farmer's son, pressed into service by the Lord's horn, his hands more at home with plow than sword. Yet here he was, breath fogging the chill air, dreaming of his mother's oat porridge as the army halted at dusk upon a hillock near the frozen river Avon. The sun, that shy painter of pale skis, dipped low and surrendered to the velvet cloak of night. Shadows stretched long like fingers of some ancient giant, and the camp stirred to life, a symphony of clinking buckles, gruff voices, and the snap of canvas unfurling. Tents rose like mushrooms after a rain, humble shelters stitched from oiled hides and coarse wool, their peaks bowed under the weight of secrecy and survival. Elias' company, a ragged score of archers and footmen under the banner of a grizzled captain named Thorn, claimed a hollow by a copse of skeletal oaks. The ground was hard as a miser's heart, dusted with rime that glittered like spilled diamonds under the emerging moon. "Up, lads! No lazing like courtiers at a feast," Thorn bellowed, his voice a rumble of thunder wrapped in frost. He was a bear of a man, beard frosted white not by age but by the night's cruel kiss, his eyes sharp as arrowheads. The men obeyed, for Thorn knew the bite of winter's teeth better than most. He'd campaigned from the scorched summers of Poitiers to these bone-chilling marches, and his wisdom was the thread that wove their fragile warmth. First came the fire, that faithful friend against the dark. Not a grand blaze to summon the king's scouts or enemy spies, but a cunning pit dug shallow in the earth, ringed with stones pilfered from the riverbed. Elias helped gather the wood, twigs from the underbrush, branches snapped from low-hanging limbs, and the hardier logs from fallen kin of the oaks. Kindling sparked under flint and steel, coaxed by Thorn's steady hand into a glow that danced like fireflies in the gloom. Soon, flames licked the air, their heat a gentle promise pushing back the cold's advance. The men huddled close, faces ruddy in the light, sharing tales spun from smoke and memory. As the fire settled to embers, the real work of the night began, the weaving of warmth within the tents. Elias' shelter was a modest affair, shared with 4 comrades, old Garrick the bowyer with fingers gnarled like oak roots, Sly Jem the pickpocket-turned pikeman, quick with a jest, broad-shouldered Rolf, silent as stone but strong as the hills, and wee Tomas the drummer boy, barely past his 15th winter, whose snores promised to rival the wind. The tent was a low-slung beast, its walls taut against the gusts, a flap at one end for entry like a dragon's wary mouth. Inside, the air hung heavy with the scent of damp wool and unwashed hope. They began with the floor, that unforgiving slab of frozen mud. No soft featherbeds here, no silken sheets for these sons of the soil. Instead, they layered the earth with what the gods and the quartermaster provided. Dry bracken and heather plucked from the hillside, bundled into a makeshift mattress that whispered secrets of summer meadows. Over this went the bedrolls, thick quilts of woolen blankets, stitched rough by camp seamstresses, their edges frayed from 100 nights. Elias unrolled his own, a gift from his sister back in the village. embroidered with faded bluebells that seemed to bloom in the fire's glow. "For luck, Eli," she'd said, pressing it into his hands with eyes like summer pools. He traced the threads now, a talisman against the chill. But blankets alone were frail shields against winter's siege. The cold crept like a thief, seeping through seams and nipping at toes. So they turned to the old ways, those half-forgotten arts passed from grandfather to son, from camp to campfire. Garrick, the elder, took charge, his voice a gravelly murmur as he schooled the young ones. "Heat seeks heat, lads. Bundle like pups in a litter, and the frost'll slink away ashamed." They arranged themselves in a circle, heads to the center, feet splayed outward like spokes of a wheel. Bodies pressed close, not in discomfort but in quiet kinship, sharing the slow rhythm of breath and the steady drum of heartbeats. Elias found himself nestled between Jem's lanky frame and Tomas's slight one, Rolf's bulk a wall at his back. It was an awkward dance at first, limbs tangling like vines, but soon it settled into a living quilt, warm as fresh-baked bread. Yet cunning required more than mere huddling. From the fire they fetched the stones, smooth river pebbles, heated till they sighed with inner fire, wrapped in scraps of sacking to cradle their warmth. These hot hearts were tucked into bedrolls, at the feet or against the belly, their glow seeping deep into muscle and bone. Elias cradled one against his chest, feeling its pulse mingle with his own, a tiny sun borrowed from the flames. "Mind the burn, boy," Garrick warned with a chuckle, "or you'll wake with a brand like a smith's mark." Laughter rippled through the tent, soft as falling snow, easing the weight of the march. Drink followed, that liquid armor against the night's advance. The quartermaster's ale, doled out in dented jacks, was no fine vintage from the cellars of lords, but it warmed from within like a lover's sigh. Mulled with spices begged from the cook's hoard, cinnamon bark and cloves. Rare treasures in this lean season, it steamed in their cups, filling the tent with scents of distant markets and Yule feasts. Jem passed the jack to Elias, his grin sly as a fox's. "To frostbitten toes and feet that march on," he toasted, and they drank deep, the brew chasing shadows from their veins. Not too much, mind, Thorn's rule was iron. Sobriety for the dawn's call, lest the French find them snoring in their cups. Clothing was the final weave in this tapestry of endurance. Layers upon layers like the rings of an ancient tree. Closest to skin, the linen shift, sweat-stained but soft from wear. Over that the woolen hose and tunic, thick as a shepherd's cloak, trapping air in pockets of defiant warmth. Fur-lined mantles, pilfered or bartered from fallen foes, draped like wings of protection. Elias donned his coif, a hood of rabbit skin that cupped his ears like a mother's hand, and mittens sewn from scraps of leather. Gloves for the hands that drew bowstring, but for sleep, the rawhide wraps that bound feet against the damp. "Wool wicks the wet," Garrick intoned, "and fur fools the frost into thinking you're a bear in hibernation." As the fire outside dwindled to a conspiratorial glow, the camp fell into that hushed vigil of the night watch. Sentries paced the perimeter, their breaths plumes in the moonlight, spears glinting like frost-laced thorns. Within the tent, the men eased into position, the bracken sighing under their weight. Elias lay still, listening to the world beyond, the distant hoot of an owl, the creak of branches in the breeze, the soft patter of snowflakes beginning their descent. Jem murmured a half-remembered ballad, words tumbling like dice, tales of maidens in mead halls, of battles won with wit over steel. Tomas, eyelids heavy, hummed a lullaby from his nursemaid days, a tune that wove through the dark like thread through cloth. Sleep came not as a thief, but as a gentle tide, lapping at the edges of wakefulness. Elias felt the warmth bloom, a shared ember kindled by flesh and fire and fellowship. The cold prowled outside, a spectral hound baying at the flaps, but here, in this burrow of brothers, it found no purchase. Dreams stirred fields of golden wheat under a kinder sun, the laughter of home, the curve of a girl's smile. Yet even in slumber the body remembered. Curl tight, breathe deep, hold the heat close. Dawn crept in thief-like gray fingers prying at the tent's edge. Thorn's horn would sound soon, rousing them to fold their fragile fortress and march anew. But for now, in the hush before the world stirred, Elias lingered in that borderland, where warmth was not just survival, but a quiet rebellion against the winter's decree. Little did he know, as the first light gilded the snow, that this night was but the prelude to a greater trial, a blizzard born of northerly winds, whispering promises of trials yet to come. The camp stirred faintly, a rustle like leaves in a hidden grove, and Elia's eyes fluttered open to the sight of Garrick already lacing his boots, a shadow moving in the half-light. Elias blinked away the dregs of sleep, the tent's dim confines resolving into shapes familiar as old friends. Garrick's back was a map of scars and stories, each line a chapter from campaigns long faded. "Stir yourself, lad," the bowyer grunted, not unkindly as he tugged at a stubborn lace. "Dawn's got teeth today, sharper than yesterday's." Outside, the wind had shifted in the night, carrying the faint, acrid tang of more snow on its breath, a promise or a threat, depending on the heart that heard it. The others roused in stages, like flowers unfurling to a reluctant sun. Jem stretched with a yawn that split his face like a crescent moon, his mop of chestnut hair tousled wild. "Och, my bones creak like the drawbridge at York," he complained, but his eyes sparkled with the mischief that made him the company's spark. Rolf merely grunted, rolling to his knees in one fluid motion, his massive frame folding and unfolding like a bellows at the forge. Tomas, last to wake, rubbed his eyes with fists the size of apples, mumbling, "Is it piping time already? Feels like I just laid me head." They broke their fast in the open air, the fire rekindled to a modest blaze for porridge, oats simmered in water from the river, thickened with a scrap of salt pork if luck favored them. Thorn oversaw it all, his presence a anchor in the morning's flux, barking orders that were half command, half catechism. "Eat hearty but save room for the march. The French wait for no full belly." The porridge was plain fare, steaming in wooden bowls, but to Elias it was nectar, warmed over the flames and savored slow. He spooned it deliberately, letting the heat seep into his core, chasing the last vestiges of night's chill. Around the fire, talk flowed easy, Jem spinning yarns of a tavern wench in Calais with hips like the rolling downs, Garrick countering with sober nods and the occasional "Aye, but mind the pox, ye fool." As bowls emptied and the sky lightened to a watery pearl, the tents came down with practiced haste. Canvas folded into packs, bedrolls strapped tight, the stones from last night kicked cold and returned to their river cradle. Elias shouldered his share, the weight a familiar companion pressing against his spine like an insistent hand. The company formed ranks, banners snapping in the freshening breeze, and Thorn led them down the hillock toward the ford. The Avon lay ahead, its surface a mirror of ice-fringed silver, challenging as any moat. The crossing was a ballet of caution, boots testing the thin crust before committing weight. Elias felt the give beneath him, a whisper of danger that set his pulse to quicken, but the current ran lazy and no man foundered. On the far bank, the land flattened to meadows blanketed white, the snow of last eve's flurry lying light as eiderdown. Yet the air bit deeper now, a keen edge honed by the wind's relentless whetstone. Thorn scanned the horizon, his beard a frozen cascade, and muttered low to his lieutenant, "Storm's brewing, mark me. We'll need stout hearts and warmer tricks tonight." The march stretched through the forenoon, miles melting underfoot in a rhythm of left, right, left. Elias' mind wandered to the ways of warmth, those small magics that turned endurance to habit. He'd heard tales from veterans of the Scottish borders, where winters clawed fiercer than any claymore. There they dig snow trenches, burrowing like foxes into drifts, the white walls holding heat better than any tent. But here, in England's milder spite, tents served, augmented by the lore of the camp. One trick Garrick favored was the hot brick, though stones sufficed when masons' wares were scarce. A clay lump baked in ashes, wrapped and wedged at the small of the back, turning the spine to a furnace. Jem, ever the innovator, swore by body broth, a stew not of pot but of proximity, where men laced arms in sleep, forming chains of shared vitality. "It's like darning a sock," he'd say, one hole patched by another's thread. Rolf contributed little to talk but much to practice, his snores a bellows that fanned the group's collective heat, steady as a smith's forge. Tomas, the boy, learned quickest, curling into the folds like a dormouse, his slight form a sink for the warmth of elders. By midday, the sky darkened not with clouds but with the weight of unspent promise, the wind rising in gusts that plucked at cloaks and carried flurries like confetti from a miser's wedding. Thorn called halt in a spinney of pines, their needles a green defiance against the white, trunks dark and resinous. "Short rest, long breaths," he commanded, and the men dropped packs, forming a ring of respite. Elias leaned against a bowl, chewing a crust of hard bread, watching flakes dance lazy in the shafts of sun that pierced the boughs. It was a moment of grace, this pause, the world reduced to the creak of settling snow, the murmur of mates, the distant call of a rook wheeling overhead. Garrick sidled close, drawing Elias into talk of home. "What farm waits for ye, lad, sheep or plough?" Elias smiled faint, the memory a balm. "Plough mostly, oats and barley with a cow named Bess who follows like a shadow." The bowyer nodded, eyes distant. "Aye, and winters there. How do ye keep the thatch from freezing solid?" Elias recounted the simple arts. Peat fires banked low, rugs of sheepskin by the hearth, the family piled in one bed under eiderdowns thick as a knight's shield. "Much like here," Garrick mused, "but with kin instead of cutthroats. Warmth's the same thread, woven different." The rest ended too soon, Thorn's horn occurred, awakening. Onward they pressed, the path veering toward a ruined abbey, its stones hunched like penitent monks under snow's shroud. Whispers rippled through the ranks, shelter there, perhaps, or ghosts to guard the night. But Thorn veered wide, wary of ambush in holy hollows, steering instead for open ground where wind could be outflanked. Dusk fell early, the light bleeding from the sky like ink in water, and the storm's herald arrived. Fat flakes tumbling thick, veiling the world in hush. Camp that eve was a hurried rite, tents pitched in a cluster like sheep in a fold, guy ropes taut against the gale's tugs. The fire pit, deeper dug this time, fought the wind with a windbreak of branches lashed to stakes. Elias' hands, numb despite mittens, fumbled the kindling, but Rolf's steady grip guided the spark to life. Flames roared defiant, fed with pine knots that snapped and spat resinous fury. Supper was hasty, salt herring roasted on sticks, washed with small beer that slaked but scarcely warmed. Thorn circled the fire, his shadow long, dispensing wisdom like a friar at vespers. "Listen well, ye lot. Night'll claw harder than a cat in a sack. Heed the old saws, layer your rags like an onion, skin to core. Wool next to flesh, linen over, fur for the crown. And the huddle tight as thieves in a noose, no gaps for the cold to sneak." He paused, eyes sweeping the circle. "Stones from the fire, hot as ye can bear. And if the wind howls loud, sing it down, voices raise heat, same as arms." Nods rippled, grave and knowing, for all had felt the winter's whim before. Into the tents they crept, the storm a curtain beyond the flaps, muffling the world to whispers. Elias' crew arranged with ritual care, bracken layered fresh, bedrolls unrolled in their wheel of warmth. Hot stones procured, wrapped tender, ale shared in sips that glowed amber in the lantern's thrift. They shed outer gear slow, folding mantles into bolsters for heads, hose rolled down but tunics tight. Elias slipped into his place, Jem at his left, Tomas right, Garrick opposite, Rolf the anchor at rear. Limbs linked loose, a net of flesh against the fray. The storm sang its lullaby, a wild harp of gusts and rattles, but within, peace pooled. Jem started a tune, low and lilting, a rover's air of roads untrod and loves unlost. Words wove through the dark. "Through frost and fen we wander free, with mates for hearth and stars for tree." Voices joined, tentative then bold, the harmony a shield of sound. Tomas's hum sweetened it, high and clear as a boy's first pipe. Even Rolf rumbled a bass note, deep as earth. Sleep stole in soft, the warmth a cradle rocking gentle. Elias drifted on tides of shared breath, the stone's embers fatting slow, the storm a distant dream. Visions came, home's hearth, Bess's warm flank, fields greening under spring's first kiss. Yet woven through was this camp's strange solace, brothers forged in cold's kiln, their heat a quiet fire no blizzard could quench. Hours turned, the night deepening to velvet black, when a cry pierced the gale, not wind but man. Thorn's voice, sharp as a blade. "Up! Riders north, French shadows on the snow." Elias jolted awake, heart hammering. The tense warmth suddenly a fragile lie as hands scrambled for steel in the dark. The cry hung in the air like a banner torn. pulling Elias from the downy edge of slumber into the raw grip of alert. His body, still steeped in the night's borrowed heat, protested the sudden wrench, muscles stiff as bowstrings unstrung too quick. Around him, the tent erupted in controlled chaos. A rustle of bedrolls kicked aside, the clink of buckles fumbled in haste, breaths coming sharp and shared in the close space. Jem cursed soft under his breath, a sailor's oath laced with fear's edge as he groped for his dagger, its hilt cold as betrayal. Tomas whimpered once, a pup's sound, before Rolf's large hand clamped his shoulder, steadying like an oak in gale. "Easy, whelp," Rolf growled, his voice the low thunder that calmed storms. Thorn's no fool to cry wolf on wind alone, but his actions belied the calm. The big man was already hauling on hose, his silhouette a mountain shifting in the tense gloom. Garrick, quickest of mind if not limb, had the flap untied, peering out into the swirling white. Snow lashed the opening like whips of lace, and beyond the camp flickered with torchlight, men spilling from shelters, shadows merging with the night. Elias snatched his sword belt, the leather creaking protest as he cinched it tight over his tunic. The blade, a simple arming sword with nicks from practice bouts, hung heavy at his hip, a weight that grounded him. He pulled on boots, the rawhide stiff with damp, and topped it with his mantle, the fur lining prickling his neck like 1,000 tiny warnings. The hot stone from his bedroll, now cooled to a dull warmth, he kicked aside regretfully. It had been a faithful companion, but steel called louder than comfort now. Out they tumbled into the fray, the storm's full fury unveiled. Flakes thick as coins, wind shrieking through the trees like banshees at a wake. The copse offered scant mercy, branches bowing low under snow's burden, shedding loads in sudden avalanches that dusted shoulders white. Torches sputtered in the gale, their flames cowering, casting pools of orange that danced mad on faces etched with urgency. Thorn stood at the center, a colossus in mail half donned, his sword drawn and point skyward like a challenge to the gods. "Scouts spied him, 20 horse light lancers probing our flank," he roared over the howl, voice carrying like a war drum. "No charge mark Harry and Fade, draw 'em to the bog yonder. Archers to the line, foothold the tents." Orders flew, men sorting to positions with the instinct of hounds to the horn. Elias' crew fell in with the bowmen, Garrick claiming a rise where the snow thinned to reveal tussocks of frozen grass. Jem knocked an arrow, his fingers steady despite the chill, while Tomas clutched his mallet, drummer's tool turned club in need. Elias drew his bow, a yew longbow the length of his arm, its curve a lover's arc. String taut, he sighted into the white veil, hard a twin beat to the wind's pulse. Minutes stretched eternal, the storm a blindfold on the world, until shapes emerged, dark smudges on the snowfield. Horses' breath steaming like dragon sighs, riders cloaked in shadow and steel. French, sure as sin, their lances tipped with moonlight, probing cautious like wolves at a fold's edge. The first shaft flew from Garrick's hand, a whisper turned hiss, burying Fletch deep in a mount's flank. The beast screamed, a sound to curdle blood, rearing to spill its rider into the drift. Chaos bloomed, arrows loosed in volleyed dark flights cutting the snow like black rain. The French answered with cries in their lilting tongue, spurs digging flanks to charge, but the bog waited, treacherous as a false friend. Hooves sinking, men cursing as they floundered. Elias loosed twice, his arms burning with the pull, shafts finding mark in shoulder and thigh. One rider toppled close, face pale as the flakes that buried him, eyes wide in surprise's final stare. The skirmish was brief, a flurry of steel and string, the French withdrawing as quick as they'd come, leaving 5 of their number to the snow's embrace in the camp's grim tally. Thorn called cease, the horns wail a sigh of release, and the men stood panting, steam rising from them like offerings to the night. Back to tents, blood hot in veins, the cold forgotten in adrenaline's rush. But the skirmish had cost 2 wounded, one with a lance graze across the ribs, another with a twisted ankle from the uneven ground. The chirurgeon's tent beckoned, its flap glowing with lantern light, the air within thick with the tang of herbs and iron. Elias helped carry the limper, young Will from the rear guard, his face gray under the freckles. "Just a scratch," Will gasped, but his grip on Elia's arm was clammy, fierce sweat mingling with the snow's melt. The night settled uneasy after, the storm raging on, but the threat receded. In their tent, the men rekindled their warmth with fervor born of brush with death. Bedrolls relayed, stones reheated with fresh fire, now fed with captured French faggots, pine splintered from a dropped lance shaft. Ale flowed freer, Thorn's decree for shaken spirits, mulled hasty with a pinch of looted nutmeg from a saddlebag. Talk turned from blows to breaths, the what-if spun into jests to lighten the load. "Ye hit that frog-eater square, Eli," Jim clapped his back, passing the jack. "Like dousing a candle with an arrow." Elias flushed, the praise a rare coin, but Garrick tempered it wise. "Luck's bowstring snaps, lad. Next time aim for the horse man fights, but beast carries." Tomas wide-eyed peppered questions till Rolf's snores drowned him, the big man's rumble a signal to settle. They huddled closer than before, limbs entwined in silent pact, the shared heat now laced with the vitality of survival. Elias lay listening. The winds wail a ballad of what might have been, the drip of melting snow from eaves, the soft cadence of mates' breaths weaving a net of safety. Sleep came reluctant, guarded by the memory of Arrow's flight, but when it did, it was deep, wrapped in the arms of exhaustion and the glow of stone still warm. Morning broke with the storm's retreat, clouds parting like curtains on a stage, revealing a world scoured clean. Snow lay deep but crisp, the air sharp as new-minted steel. Thorn tallied the take. A few lances, a banner furled in defeat, provisions enough to ease the next march. The wounded mended under poultices of willow bark and honey, their groans a counterpoint to birdsong returning tentative. Elia's rose renewed, the night's trials a forge that tempered rather than broke. The company struck camp with dawn's gold light gilding the drifts, packs heavier with spoils but spirits lighter for the victory small. Thorn led them south, toward warmer vales and perhaps a village with roofs of thatch and hearths of peat. But winter's tale was far from told. Whispers from scouts spoke of greater hosts gathering, French and English alike, drawn to the spring's thaw like moths to flame. As they marched, Elias pondered the night's lessons, not just of bow and blade but of the deeper war, against the cold that gnawed eternal. Tents were but canvas thrones, fires fleeting kings. True sovereignty lay in the bond, the huddle, the quiet arts that turned frost to friend. And in that thought the miles slipped easier, the snow a carpet underfoot rather than chain. Yet as the sun climbed high, a rider crested the ridge ahead, banner fluttering frantic, news from the van, of a pass blocked by drift and foe alike. The words spilling from his foaming horse's mouth like a prophet's dire warning, sending a murmur through the ranks that rippled like a stone skipped across a frozen pond. Thorn reined in his own mount, a sturdy Garin with flanks heaving from the morning's toil, his eyes narrowing under bushy brows as the scout dismounted, knees buckling slightly on the snow-crusted ground, breath coming in ragged puffs that hung like ghosts in the crisp air. "Captain," the man gasped, saluting with a fist to chest, his face ruddy from windwhip and haste. "The pass at Blackthorn Gap, it's choked solid, drifts taller than a man on horse, and worse, French pickets hold the high ground, archers nestled in the rocks like vipers in a nest, their fires winking like devil's eyes through the white." The company halted in a loose column, boots scraping to stillness, packs shifting on shoulders with the weight of unease, Elias feeling a knot tighten in his belly like a bowstring drawn too taut, his mind flashing to the skirmish of the night before, wondering if this was the prelude to a greater clash, where warmth and tents would be a luxury forgotten in the heat of steel and scream. Thorn stroked his beard thoughtfully, the frost in it melting to droplets that traced icy paths down his chin, before barking orders that cut the chill like a hot blade. "No turning back, lads. We'll skirt the gap to the east, through the whispering woods, old-growth pines that shield from wind and eye alike. But mark me, it'll be rough going, bogs hidden under snow like traps for the unwary." The men groaned soft, a chorus of weary souls, but fell in step as the column veered, the sun's rays now slanting gold through the gathering clouds, casting long shadows that danced like specters on the undulating drifts. Elias trudging beside Jim, who whistled a tuneless air to lighten the mood, his sly grin flashing white against the cold-flushed skin. The march into the woods was a descent into a muffled world, the pines towering like ancient sentinels, their needles whispering secrets to the breeze, branches heavy with snow that shed in soft cascades at the slightest touch, turning the path to a slippery vein of earth veined with ice. Elia's boots sank ankle-deep at times, the cold seeping up like fingers of frost clutching at his calves, but the canopy above offered mercy, breaking the wind's fury into harmless sighs, allowing pockets of warmth to build from the steady plod, bodies generating heat like walking furnaces, shared in the press of shoulders when the trail narrowed. Garrick, ever the sage, regaled them with tales from his youth, voice gravelly but warm as mulled ale. In the Welsh marches, we once lost a whole company to a drift like this, but old Mad Davy saved us by teaching the snow cave, dig deep, line with boughs, and breathe your way to dawn, the white walls holding your heat like a mother's apron. Elias listened rapt, filing away the wisdom, imagining the press of white around him, a burrow against the world's bite, while Tomas piped up with boyish curiosity. But what of the wolves, Garrick? Do they sniff out the warmth and come calling? The bowyer chuckled. A rumble like distant thunder. Aye, lad, but a good fire's arrow wards 'em off, and song, sing loud, for beasts fear the human soul's wild cry. Rolf said naught, his massive strides eating the ground, but his presence was a comfort, a living bulwark that parted the snow like a ship through waves. By late afternoon, the woods thinned to a clearing ringed by fallen logs, a natural amphitheater where Thorn called halt, the sun dipping low and painting the snow in hues of rose and amber, the air thickening with the promise of another frigid eve. Camp setup was a ritual honed by hardship, tents rising swift from packs like flowers from seed, canvas snapping taut under guy ropes lashed to sturdy pines, Elia's hands numb but nimble from practice, driving stakes deep into the frozen soil with a mallet borrowed from Tomas, who drummed a merry beat on a log to speed the work, the rhythm echoing through the trees like a heartbeat of the wild. The fire pit came next, a communal heart dug broad and ringed with stones, wood gathered in armfuls, dry tinder from under bark, branches cracked from low limbs, logs dragged from the wood's edge by Rolf's Herculean pull, the blaze kindled with flint strikes that sparked like stars falling to earth, flames leaping greedy to devour the fuel, heat rolling out in waves that thawed fingers and faces, drawing the men close like moths to a lantern. Supper simmered over the coals, a stew of salted beef and roots foraged from the margins, carrots and turnips hacked from the hard ground with adzes, thickened with barley from the quartermaster's dwindling stores, the aroma a balm that stirred bellies and spirits alike, Elias ladling his share into a wooden bowl, the steam rising to kiss his cheeks, savoring each bite slow, the warmth spreading from throat to toes like liquid sunlight. Talk around the fire turned to the pass's peril, Thorn outlining the morrow's plan with a stick-drawn map in the snow. We'll probe the wood's edge at dawn, find a ford over the brook, then climb the eastern spur steeper but less watched, and with luck, the French'll be snowblind and stiff from their own cold. Jem, ever the wag, quipped, "Aye, Captain, and if they're frozen solid, we'll chip 'em for kindling," drawing laughs that bubbled warm, easing the tension coiled like a spring. As dusk deepened to indigo, the individual tents beckoned, Elias shared with his steadfast crew, the low dome a sanctuary stitched from oiled cloth that shed the wet like a duck's back, the flap tied secure against intruders of wind or worse. Inside, the air was close and expectant, scented with the earthy tang of bracken strewn fresh for bedding, a thick carpet that cushioned the hard-packed snow beneath, whispering of forests far and green. Bedrolls unrolled in their familiar pattern, woolen quilts layered thick, Elia's sister's gift a soft anchor amid the rough, its bluebells faded but fervent, a thread to home's hearth where winters were met with family piled high under eiderdowns, sharing stories till sleep claimed them gentle. But the cold outside prowled insistent, demanding tribute, so they invoked the arts of endurance with reverent care. First, The hot stones, fetched from the fire's edge where they'd baked to glowing, wrapped in sacking dampened to prevent scorch, placed strategic at feet and core. Their heat a slow seep that mimicked the sun's buried fire. Elias pressing one to his midriff, feeling it pulse like a second heart, warding off the night's siege. Then the huddle, bodies arranging in a wheel of warmth, heads inward for whispered converse, feet outward to spare the shared breath staleness. Elias between Jem's lean form and Tomas's slight curl, Rolf's bulk a radiant wall at back. Garrick across with gnarled hands folded like roots seeking soil. Limbs touched not in awkwardness but alliance, a tapestry of flesh where heat flowed free, breaths mingling in rhythmic tide, turning the tent to a living being, alive with the quiet symphony of snores and sighs. Clothing layered wise, linen shifts next to skin to draw sweat away, wool tunics and hose trapping airs insulating puff, mantles of fur, rabbit and fox pilfered from earlier spoils, draped over like cloaks of beasts that knew winter's ways, coifs hooding heads, mittens discarded for the press but feet wrapped in extra rags, Garrick murmuring, layer like the earth's strata, lad inner dry, outer bold, and the frost finds no crack to creep. Drink sealed the rite, ale from Jack's passed round, mulled hasty with cloves and a sliver of apple begged from the cook, steaming and spiced, warming veins like a lover's embrace, toasted to absent friends and the passes fall, but measured, for Thorn's watch demanded clear heads against the dark's unknowns. As the fire outside banked low under sentry's care, the tent fell to hush, the world beyond a canvas of wind-wined pines and distant owl's call, snowflakes tapping soft like fingers on the roof, Jem starting a ballad low, words weaving through the gloom. In woods where shadows play and cold winds sigh, we brothers lie warm in the by and by, voices joining faint, Tomas's treble sweet as honeyed mead, Rolf's bass a grounding hum, the song a shield that raised inner fires, chasing chill from bones and doubt from minds. Sleep descended gradual, a soft veil drawn over wakefulness, Elias drifting on waves of shared warmth, dreams blending home's fields with camp's trials, Bess the cow nuzzling his hand, his sister's laugh echoing in pine-scented air, the girl's smile from village fairs curving like a bow unstrung, body curling instinctive, breath deep, and even the hot stones cooling slow, the huddle a fortress unbreached. Yet the night held no peace entire. Midway, a gust tore at the flap, snow sifting in like unbidden guests, rousing Elias to mumble and shift closer, Jem's arm draping casual over his shoulder, a brother's guard, while Garrick snored on, steadfast as the oaks without. Dawn broke with a sky of hammered lead, light filtering gray through the canvas, Thorn's horn a clarion call that stirred the camp to life, men emerging bleary but unbroken, folding tents with frost-cracked fingers, the fire's embers kicked to ash and snow, breakfast a hasty pottage of oats and snowmelt, warmed quick over rekindled flames, Elias slurping his share, the heat a revival that chased slumber's fog. The march resumed into the wood's deeper folds, the path a serpentine trail where roots humped like buried serpents under white, the air still but heavy with damp, breaths plumbing thick, Elias' mind turning to the cave lore Garrick spoke, wondering if drifts ahead might demand such desperate craft. Hours blurred in rhythmic step, the company silent save for the crunch of snow and occasional jest from Jem to pierce the quiet, until the brook appeared, a silver ribbon fringed with ice, its fort a gamble of slippery stones, men linking arms to cross, water numbing legs to the knee but no man swept away, Thorn at fore like a shepherd guiding flock. The eastern spur loomed then, a steep rise cloaked in pine and scrub, snow deeper here, drifts waist-high that required kicking steps or ropes lashed man to man, Rolf hauling Tomas up like a sack of feathers, Elias panting with effort, sweat beading cold on brow despite the toil's inner fire. At the crest, they paused for breath, the view a sweep of white expanse where the pass lay distant, a notch choked and guarded, French banners faint specks on the far ridge, fire smoke curling thin. Thorn surveyed grim, then pointed east again. Another day's push to the lowlands, lads' villages there with roofs and hearths, but first we skirt this devil's backbone. Descent was swifter but treacherous, slides threatening at every loose step. One man, old Hardship, tumbling to a sprained wrist, bound tight with strips from a spare shirt. The chirurgeons herbs a poultice of willow and fat to ease the ache. By eve, they found a hollow sheltered by a cliff face, rocks curving like a giant's arm toward the wind, camp pitched in its embrace, tents nestled close, the fire a grander blaze fed by deadwood aplenty, supper richer with a snared hare roasted crisp, its juices dripping to sizzle on coals, shared with bread crumbs softened in broth. Night's weave of warmth repeated but amplified by the hollow's boon, stones hotter from the blaze's depth, huddled tighter against the cliff's chill shadow, songs louder in the echo's hall. Elia's learning a new verse from Jem about a soldier's dream of spring, where tents gave way to halls and cold to kisses soft. Sleep came profound, the cliff a sentinel, dreams untroubled till a scout's return at midnight stirred them. French patrols veering close but lost in the dark, the threat passing like a ghost. Morn brought clearer skies, sun bold and warming, melting snow to slush that sucked at boots, the march easier on flatter ground, woods giving to meadows where deer tracks crisscrossed, hope flickering like the first green shoots. Yet winter clung stubborn, flurries spitting spiteful, and Thorn warned of the final push. One more night in the wild, lads, then hearths await. Camp that eve was a feast of sorts, provisions stretched with foraged nuts and berries under snow, fire roaring with pine resin's crackle, talk turning nostalgic Garrick of his first campaign, Jem of loves lost, Rolf grunting a tale of a bear hunt in youth, Tomas wide-eyed, Elias sharing his farm's winters, the family huddle under quilts, peat smoke curling sweet. Into tents the ritual sacred now, bracken thick, bedrolls plush with extra blankets from the wounded share, stones wrapped and radiant, huddle a embrace of souls, ale spiced with wild honey found in a hollow tree, layers don deliberate, shift hose, tunic, mantle, coif, Garrick's words a mantra, heat within, hold without, and winter bends. Songs wove long, ballads of heroes and home, sleep a deep well, Elia's dreaming of the village inn, ale foaming, girl dancing, warmth eternal. But dawn's horn revealed the true trial. A blizzard unleashed, winds howling fury, visibility naught, the company forced to hunker in tents, fires banked against the gale, warmth's arts tested utmost. Huddles doubled, men from adjacent tents merging for shared heat, stones refreshed by ventures into the storm, songs shouted to drown despair. Elias pressed amid a throng of bodies, breaths a steam of life, the blizzard a beast battering doors, but inside unbreakable. Hours stretched to eternity, cold seeping but repelled by unity, tales told in whispers to pass time. Garrick's cave wisdom invoked as they dug reinforcements around tents with entrenching tools, snow walls rising to insulate, turning shelters to igloos of canvas and white. The storm raged 2 days, provisions rationed, but morale held by Thorn's steady voice and the fire's defiant glow, peeking through slits to feed the soul. When it broke, the world reborn in sparkle, drifts sculpted fantastical, the pass clear by melt and French retreat, the company emerging like warriors from forge, Elia's feeling forged anew. The bond of warmth not just physical but of spirit, tents folded, marched to villages where hearths blazed true, but the wild's lessons etched deep. In huddle and song, fire and lair, medieval soldiers slept without Freeze's kiss, a lullaby of survival sung through ages. Yet as they neared the first thatched roofs, smoke curling welcoming, a horn sounded from afar. Not English, but French, a larger force stirring, the war's whisper promising more nights of whispered warmth amid the fray, the sound slicing through the crisp morning air like a dagger drawn slow from its sheath, sending a ripple of alert down the column of men who had just begun to taste the promise of rest and real hearths after days of snowbound toil. Thorn halted sharp, his hand raised like a barrier against the unseen threat, his eyes scanning the horizon where the village nestled in a shallow vale, roofs of straw and mud daub poking up like humble mushrooms after a thaw, chimneys puffing gray plumes that spoke of bread baking and pots simmering, a sight that had stirred hopes of ale in tankards and beds not shared with frost's bite. But the horn's wail, distant yet insistent, echoed from the western ridge, a call that Thorn knew too well, the brazen notes of a French clarion, summoning riders or foot to muster, perhaps scouts or a vanguard probing for the English stragglers like wolves sniffing a wounded deer. "Hold, lads," Thorn growled low, his voice a steady anchor amid the sudden murmur of unease that bubbled through the ranks, men shifting packs and gripping hilts, Elias feeling his heart quicken like a drumbeat in his chest, the warmth from the morning's march evaporating quick as mist under sun. The company drew into a defensive knot, archers knocking arrows loose, footmen forming a ragged line with spears tilted forward like thorns on a hedge, while scouts, fleet-footed lads like swift hares, darted ahead to the village's edge, vanishing into the dips of the land to spy the peril. Elias stood with his crew, bow in hand, string humming faint with tension, Jem at his side muttering curses soft as prayers. By the saints, can a man catch a breath without the frogs croaking up trouble? Garrick, fingers twitching on his own bow like roots seeking water, scanned the tree line with eyes sharpened by years, while Rolf planted feet wide, pike braced like a tree rooted deep, Tomas clutching his drum mallets tight, face pale but resolute, the boy's youth a fragile shield against the gathering storm. Minutes stretched long as winter shadows, the horn fatting to echoes that danced on the wind, until the scouts returned at a trot, faces flushed with haste and tidings grim. French horse, captain, a score or more, armored light but swift, circling the village like hawks on a dove, villagers bolting doors but some taken as guides, fires lit in the square but not for welcome. Thorn's face hardened like forged iron, beard twitching as he chewed the news, then spat orders crisp. "No village rest today. We'll swing north to the old mill ruins, use the stream for cover and the walls for stand, dig in deep and make 'em pay for every step." The men turned reluctant, dreams of hearths dashed like waves on rock, trudging away from the tempting smoke toward the wilder lands where an ancient mill hunkered by a babbling brook, its stones moss-clad and crumbling, a relic from times when peace allowed grinding grain instead of bones. The march was tense, every rustle in the underbrush a potential foe, snow squelching under boots like reluctant confessions, Elias' mind whirling with the arts of warmth now twisted to survival's edge, how to kindle fire quick without smoke's betrayal, how to layer bracken in ruins for a hasty bed, the lessons of nights past a quiet armor against despair. By midday, they reached the mill, a squat beast of weathered stone with walls half-tumbled like a giant's forgotten toy, the wheel long seized by ice in the stream's lazy flow, offering nooks and crannies for ambush and rest alike. Thorn set watches swift, men scrambling to fortify, logs dragged to barricade gaps, snow piled into low walls like hasty ramparts, archers perched on the upper ledges where vines clung like desperate fingers, Elias helping Rolf heave a fallen beam into place, muscles burning with the effort, sweat cooling quick to chill in the breeze. The French horn sounded nearer now, a taunt carried on the wind, but the company held silent, breaths held like secrets, waiting for the foe's approach. Hours ticked by in hushed vigil, the sun arcing slow overhead, casting shadows that lengthened like fingers pointing accusation, until hoofbeats drummed faint, then loud, riders emerging from the tree line in a loose fan, cloaks flapping blue and gold, lances couched low, helms glinting cold under the pale light. The skirmish erupted sudden, arrows hissing from the ruins like angry wasps, finding marks in horseflesh and mail, French cries mingling with English shouts, steel clashing as a few bold riders charged the barricades, Rolf's pike thrusting true to unhorse one, Jem's dagger flashing in close quarters to fell another, Elias losing shafts steady, each pull a breath of focus, one arrow piercing a gorget to silence a foe mid-yell. The fight was fierce but fleeting, the French retreating with losses, dragging wounded comrades, leaving bloodstains blooming red on the white snow like poppies in a field, the company cheering hoarse but counting their own. A gash on Garrick's arm, bound quick with rags. Tomas's drum cracked but spirit unbroken. As dusk fell soft, the ruins became camp. Tents pitched within the stone embrace for added shelter, walls blocking wind's howl, the stream providing water clear and cold for drinking and washing wounds. Fire was kindled cautious in a deep pit, shielded by stones to hide its glow from prying eyes. Wood gathered from the mill's rotted beams, flames crackling low but warm, men huddling close to share heat and tales of the clash. Thorn praising the stand with nods and extra rations of hard cheese and bread, the aroma mingling with the earthy scent of damp stone. Supper was meager but heartening. Stew bubbled from snares yield, rabbits caught in loops of twine skinned quick and simmered with wild onions dug from the banks. The broth a savory hug that warmed from within, Elias savoring his bowl slow, spoon scraping wood, the heat chasing fatigue from limbs. Talk flowed easy now, victory's glow a balm, Jem spinning the fight into ballad fodder. And lo, the frogs hopped bold but fell to English sting. Their lances limp as wilted reeds in spring, laughter rippling soft. Garrick adding sober notes on bandaging wounds with boiled cloths to fend infections creep, Rolf grunting approval, Tomas drumming a victory tattoo on his cracked skin. As night deepened to velvet black, stars peeking through rents in clouds like curious eyes, the tents within the mill beckoned, Elias shared with his mates. Canvas stretched taut over a nook where stone walls rose three sides, offering a burrow-like coziness that trapped heat better than open field. The floor layered thick with rushes pulled from the stream's edge, dry and springy underfoot, whispering of river meadows in warmer climes, bedrolls unrolled with care, quilts piled high, Elias tracing his sister's bluebells for luck's whisper. The cold outside lurked like a thief at the door, but they countered with time-honored rites expanded by the day's trial. Hot stones from the fire, wrapped tender in wool scraps, placed not just at feet but along spines and under arms for fuller spread, their warmth a slow river flowing through veins. The huddle formed tight, bodies curving into a knot of shared life, Elias nestled amid Jem's jests and Tomas's soft breaths, Rolf's bulk a furnace wall, Garrick's stories a lullaby low. In the Crusade sands, we learned from Saracens the art of shared cloaks, turning desert chill to forgotten dream. Clothing donned deliberate, layers upon layers. Linen shifts freshened with stream rinse, wool hose doubled for extra puff, tunics tucked tight, mantles of captured French wool added now. Fur linings soft as cat's belly, coifs pulled low over ears, feet bound in extra rags soaked in fat for waterproof bite. Drink passed in jacks, ale mulled with captured spices, ginger root and peppercorns from a foe's pouch, steaming aromatic, toasting to fallen French and standing English, the brew igniting inner fires that laughed at the frost. Sentries paced the ruins' perimeter, spears at ready, but within the tent, peace pooled deep, Jem starting a song of homeward roads, words weaving through the dark like threads in a loom. Through snow and steel, we march on true with brothers' heat to see us through, voices blending harmonious, Tomas's high note sweet, Rolf's rumble grounding, the melody a shield raising spirits and warmth alike. Sleep came gentle, a tide lapping soft, Elias drifting on waves of fellowship, dreams mingling mills stones with home's barn, the girl's smile warming like sun on snow, body curling instinctive to hold the heat, the stone's glow fatting slow but the huddle eternal. Yet the night stirred midway, a sentry's whisper rousing Thorn who crept to peek, French campfires winking distant, a larger host gathering like storm clouds, the war's pulse quickening. Dawn broke gray and grudging, light seeping through cracks in walls, the horn's call soft to avoid echo's betrayal, men rousing to fold tents swift, fire smothered to ash, breakfast a cold bite of cheese and crust, Elias chewing thoughtful, the ruins shelter a memory as they slipped away north, skirting the village now silent under French boot. The march wove through hedgerows and copses, snow thinning to slush as land sloped gentler, Thorn's plan unfolding. We'll link with the main host at Eldridge Ford, 2 days push, but watch for patrols, warmth tonight in barns if luck holds. Miles melted under steady steps, Elias' mind wandering to deeper lore of winter's war, veterans' whispers of oil-soaked cloths draped over tents for wind's foil, or burrows dug in haystacks for hidden heat, the arts evolving with each cold eve. By noon, a hamlet appeared, abandoned in haste, doors ajar and hearths cold, but barns stout with hay bales golden as forgotten sun, the company claiming one for camp, doors barred against foes, tents unnecessary in the thatched embrace. The barn's loft became their realm, hay piled deep for bedding soft as clouds, walls of timber blocking gusts, the scent of dried grass a balm from summer's kiss. Fire kindled small in a cleared spot, shielded by bales, flames dancing merry, supper from looted stores. Apples withered but sweet, oats cooked to porridge thick, shared with tales of hamlets past. Night's warmth wove luxurious, hay layered thick, burrowing into nests like field mice, bedrolls atop for quilted crown, no stones needed with hay's insulating hug, huddle loose but warm, bodies sinking deep, Garrick teaching the hay cocoon. Wrap self in mantle and burrow solo if space allows, heat trapped personal like a secret hoard. Clothing lightened for comfort, ale flowed freer from a found keg, spiced with barn-found herbs. Songs belted bold in the enclosed space, echoes amplifying joy. Sleep enveloped profound, Elias dreaming of endless summers, the barn a womb of safety amid war's storm. But dawn brought scouts' alarm, French closing, a detachment hot on trail, the company fleeing swift, leaving barns smoldering to deny foes comfort. The chase ensued tense, through fields and fords, snow turning to mud under warming sun, Elias' legs aching but spirit steeled by night's lessons. Eve found them in a thicket dense, tents pitched camo with branches, fire minimal, warmth from huddles tight and breath shared, stones reheated hasty, songs whispered low. The French passed close but blind, night passing in vigilant hush, sleep fitful but sustaining. Morn pushed them to Eldridge Ford, the main English host a sight of banners and fires grand, safety in numbers but war's wheel turning still. There in the larger camp, warmth's arts scaled, communal fires roaring, tents in rows like villages, quartermaster's bounty of blankets thick and ale hot. Elias' crew claimed a spot by a wagon, tents enhanced with wagons lee, bracken and hay from stores, stones aplenty, huddles merry with new mates' tailies. Nights blurred in routine, layer, huddle, sing, sleep. Against sieges and marches, blizzards and battles, the quiet rebellion enduring. Yet as spring whispered hints, a great clash loomed at Poitiers fields, promising trials where warmth was but a pause in glory's chase. Through it all, Elias grew, farmer's son to soldier sage. The tents embrace a lullaby eternal, woven from wool and will, fire and fellowship, defying freeze's grasp in history's relaxing weave. Yet as spring whispered hints, a great clash loomed at Poitiers fields, promising trials where warmth was but a pause in glory's chase. The air growing milder with each passing dawn, buds peeking shy from branches like secrets long held, the snow retreating to patches in shadowed hollows, leaving mud that clung to boots like reluctant lovers. Elias marching with the swelled host now, his company folded into the grander army under the king's banner. A sea of men and horses stretching like a river of steel and wool across the greening plains. The whispers of winter's lullaby lingered in his bones, a quiet hum of lessons learned. How the tent's canvas could cradle like a mother's arms, how fire's glow turned foes to friends in the night's hush, how layers of cloth and kin wove a shield against the cold's cruel bite. But now, with the thaw's breath, new challenges bloomed, the war awakening from its frosted slumber to roar anew. Thorn, ever the steadfast captain, rode at the fore on his garron, beard trimmed shorter in the warming winds, eyes scanning the horizon where scouts reported French masses gathering like storm clouds over the distant hills, their numbers swelling with knights from Gascony and Levi's from the Loire, banners of lilies fluttering defiant. Elias trudged beside Jem, whose jests now carried a sharper edge, the pickpocket's grin masking the weariness etched in his lines. Eli think we'll trade tents for tavern beds soon. Or will the frogs keep us dancing in the muck? Elias chuckled soft, his own face tanned by sun's return, hands calloused from bow and spade. Soon enough, Jem. After Poitiers, perhaps, when the king claims his due. Garrick walked with a slight limp from the mill skirmish's scar, but his wisdom flowed unchecked, regaling Tomas with tales of springs past, when thaws brought floods that drowned camps, teaching the boy to pitch tents on rises and dig drainage ditches like veins to bleed the wet away. Rolf, silent giant, carried extra packs for the wounded, his strength a pillar the company leaned on, while Tomas, growing bolder, beat his Mendied drum in rhythm to the march, the beats a heartbeat echoing through the ranks. The army's sprawl was a living beast, wagons creaking with supplies, barrels of salted pork, sacks of oats, bolts of wool for mending, quartermasters' horns calling halts for water from streams now running clear and swift, the water tasting of earth's renewal, slaking thirsts parched from winter's dry bite. Elias sipped from his jack, mind wandering to home's well, cool and moss-lined, but pushed the thought aside as Thorne called scouts' reports. French vanguard spotted, light horse harrying flanks, but we press on to the ford at Vienne, crossed by Yves and camp on the far bank. The crossing was a chaos of order, men wading thigh-deep in the river's chill flow, ropes lashed from bank to steady the unsteady, horses snorting plumes of steam, Elias gripping Jem's arm as the current tugged insistent, but no soul lost to the depths. The far shore a promise of drier ground where willows drooped like weary sentinels. Camp that night was a vast tapestry, tents sprouting like a forest of cloth peaks across the meadow, Elias' company claiming a spot by a cluster of alders, their leaves unfurling green as hope. Setup was ritual grandeur now, with army's resources. Stakes hammered deep by mallets communal, guy ropes woven stout from hemp, canvas oiled fresh to repel the night's dew that fell heavy in spring's moist breath. Fire pit dug broad, ringed with river stones, wood hauled in carts from felled groves, flames roaring high to dry boots and spirits, the heat a communal embrace pushing back the evening's cool nip. Supper simmered in cauldrons vast, stew of venison from hunters' bows, thickened with barley and wild garlic foraged from the banks, the aroma wafting like a siren's call, Elias queuing with bowl in hand, the portion hearty, savored slow on a log bench, the flavors bursting like spring's first bloom on tongue. Talk around the blaze turned to the looming battle, Thorne mapping strategies in the dirt with a stick. We'll hold the ridge at Poitiers, archers in front to rain hell, foot to brace the charge, warmth tonight, lads, for tomorrow's heat is of a different kind. Jem quipped light, aye, captain, and if the French bring wine, we'll toast 'em proper before sending 'em home. Laughter rolled warm, easing knots of fear, Garrick adding tales of Cracy's mud, where rain turned fields to quagmires but English bows prevailed, teaching patience in the wait. As stars wheeled overhead, clear in the thawing sky, the tents called, Elias shared with his faithful four, now joined by a new lad, Pip, a scrawny recruit from Kent, eyes wide as saucers at the army's scale. The interior a cozy den, floor layered with fresh rushes from the river, scented sweet and cushioning the damp earth, bedrolls unrolled in a sprawl, quilts mended with patches from French spoils. Elias' bluebell won a talisman glowing in lantern's thrift. The chill of spring eve was subtler than winter's fang, but they wove warmth with care refined. Hot stones from the fire, wrapped in linen to hold longer, placed at strategic points, feet for the march-weary, backs for the bowed, bellies for the hollow. The huddle adapted loose, bodies in a semicircle facing the flap for quick rouse, Elias between Jem and Tomas, Rolf's bulk anchoring one end, Garrick the other, Pip curling small like a pup at the fringe. Layers donned thoughtful, linen shifts aired in the day's sun, wool hose thin for breath but doubled at toes, tunics loose for air's trap, mantles lighter now with fur trimmed back, coifs optional but feet still wrapped in oiled rags against the dew's seep. Drinks shared from a skin of small beer, mulled mild with mint leaves plucked green, toasting to Poitiers victory and home's hearths, the brew a gentle fire in veins, not the fierce ale of winter's need. Sentries paced the camp's vast perimeter, horns ready for alarm. But within, hush fell soft, Jem murmuring a ballad of budding love in spring fields, words lilting like the river's song. When snow yields to green and hearts to gleam, we soldiers dream of peace's stream. Voices joining tentative, Tomas's clear as a lark's call, Rolf's grunt a bass harmony, Pip's whisper adding innocence's note, the tune a cradle rocking worries away. Sleep descended like mist on meadows, Elias drifting on tides of camaraderie, dreams weaving village greens with battlefield ghosts. The girls curve a promise warmer than any fire, body relaxing into the haze sigh, the stones warmth a fatting ember but the bond eternal. Yet the night stirred gentle, a light rain pattering on canvas like fingers drumming soft, rousing Elias to check the flaps, tying them tighter, the drip diverted by ditches dug deep, returning to the huddle's embrace, sleep reclaiming swift. Dawn broke with birdsong triumphant. Light golden through the weave, Thorn's horn blending with the chorus, men rising to shake dew from cloaks, tents folded neat into packs, fire banked to coals for porridge quick, oats simmered with honey from raided hives, sweet and sustaining, Elias spooning his share, the warmth a morning kiss chasing slumber's chill. The march resumed toward Poitiers, lands rolling gentler, farms dotting the way with peasants peering wary, some offering bread or eggs in exchange for tailies. The army a tide swallowing the path, Elias steps lighter in the mud's give. Scouts reported French positions, entrenched on the hill, numbers vast but morale frayed by winter's linger. English plan to lure them down with feigned retreat, bows ready to reap the charge. Camp the next eve was on a rise overlooking the field, tents pitched in ordered rows like a city's streets, Elias spot by a hedgerow blooming early thorns, white as snow's memory. Set up swift under gathering clouds, canvas taut against promised rain, fire pits multiple for the host's scale, wood abundant from coppiced woods, flames dancing high to dry the air's damp. Supper a feast relative, roast fowl from snares, bread baked fresh in camp ovens, cheese sharp from wagon stores, the meal a bulwark against battle's eve jitters, Elias eating with mates, talk of tactics and tomorrows, thorns circling to bolster spirits. Sleep sound, lads, warmth tonight fuels the fight. Into tents, the ritual enriched, rushes doubled for comfort's crown, bedrolls scented with lavender sprigs for calm's whisper, hot stones augmented with heated irons from the smith's forge, wrapped safe and glowing long. Huddle intimate, stories shared of homes awakening to spring, Garrick's bowyer shop with apprentices hammering, Jem's city alleys blooming with markets, Rolf's hills greening for sheep, Tomas's village fairs with dances merry, Pip's farm fields plowed fresh, Elias adding his oats swaying golden, the tailies a tapestry binding them. Layers adjusted for spring's whims, wool light but extras ready for night's drop, drink of spiced wine luted French, warm and heady, songs bolder now, anthems of England rising choral. Sleep profound, dreams of victories glow, but alarm came pre-dawn, French probes testing lines, men rousing to bows, repelling shadows with arrows' flight. The skirmish brief, warmth's nest abandoned hasty but reformed after, sleep snatched in snatches till light. Battle dawned fierce, Poitiers fields a churn of mud and men, English holding ridge, bows losing storms that felled nights in heaps, Elias pulling string till arms screamed, Jem at his side dodging lances, Rolf charging with pike to break lines, Garrick's shots precise as surgeons cut, Tomas drumming rally cries, Pip holding ground brave. The clash raged hours, French charge breaking on English steel, captures rich, including the French king himself. Victory's roar drowning all, Elias standing amid the fallen, breath ragged but alive. The warmth of life a fire brighter than any camp blaze. In Victory's camp, tents rose triumphant, fires blazing with looted wood, supper lavish from French stores. Wines fine, meats roasted, breads soft, the air alive with cheers. Warmth's arts luxurious, quilt silk from nobles' tents, stones unnecessary in the night's mild hold, huddles merry with tailies of the day, songs victorious echoing far. Elias grew further sage in survival's weave, the lullaby evolving to summer's hum but war's path winding on, hints of home calling soft. Months blurred in garrison duties, camps in castles' shadows, warmth from hearth's stone built, but tense memory a relaxing echo, fellowship unbroken. As autumn hinted, discharge whispers came, Elias dreaming of plow and peace, the story's thread continuing in history's gentle flow, defying not just freeze but fate's chill grasp. The leaves turning gold and crimson like banners of a kinder war, fluttering down to carpet the paths in soft decay, the air carrying a crisp edge that nipped at exposed skin, reminding the men that winter's ghost lingered even as summer's heat faded to memory. Elias walking with a lighter step now, his pack slung easy over one shoulder, the weight of Poitiers glory a metal pin to his tunic, but the ache in his arms a quiet echo of arrows loosed in fury. The king's host, swelled then bloodied, now splintered into companies wending homeward, thorns band among them, granted leave after the ransom feasts and victory marches through cheering towns where ale flowed free and maidens tossed flowers like confetti from the fray. But the road stretched long from Poitiers fields to England's shores, a ribbon of mud and mist winding through French vales where loyalties shifted like wind in the willows. Elias' thoughts turned often to the farm, envisioning best the cow lowing welcome, his mother's porridge steaming on the hob, his sister's bluebell quilt waiting to enfold him in nights without the huddle's press. Yet the camaraderie clung stubborn, Jem's jests a constant spark. Eli, lad, when we reach Dover, I'll buy ye a pint so deep ye'll swim home. Garrick's gravelly counsel on mending bows for plowshares. Rolf's silent nods a bond deeper than words, Tomas now taller. His drum beats marking miles like a heartbeat shared, and Pip, the Kent boy, blooming into a wiry scout with eyes sharp as flint. Thorne rode ahead on his garron, map in hand sketched hasty on vellum, plotting the route. North to the Channel ports, lads, skirt the rebel holds in Aquitaine, ford the Seine at quiet bends, and pray the truce holds till we taste English ale. The march began leisurely, days shortening with the sun's descent, camps pitched in orchards heavy with windfalls, apples tart and crisp forage for pies baked in camp ovens. The scent of cinnamon begged from villagers mingling with wood smoke. But autumn's chill deepened gradual, mornings dawning foggy with dew that soaked cloaks like tears unshed. Elias waking to the rustle of leaves underfoot, folding his tent with fingers stiff from night's cool bite. The first eve out from the victory sprawl found them in a copse of beeches, nuts crunching under boots like tiny bones, tents rising in a familiar circle, canvas glowing amber in sunset's farewell. Elias helping Tomas drive stakes into the softening earth. The boys laughed light as he quipped. No snow this time, Eli, but the damp's a sneaky foe, slips in like a thief in hose. The fire pit scooped shallow to avoid the leaf litter's smoke, ringed with mossy stones, wood gathered from fallen branches dry as old men's jokes. Kindling sparked easy under flint, flames leaping merry to chase the gloaming's gray, men clustering close, faces ruddy in the light, sharing tales of Poitiers chaos. The king's capture a jest now. Old John took the crown like a beggar snatches bread, Jem roared, passing a jack of cider pressed from the orchard's bounty, tart and bubbling. Warming throats parched from the day's dust. Supper was simple plenty, apples cored and roasted on sticks till skins split sweet, paired with cheese veined blue from a trader's cart. Bread loaves baked that morn in the company's field oven, crusty and warm, Elias breaking his share with Rolf, the big man's grunt a thanks profound, the meal a pause where worries melted like frost under noon. As stars pricked the velvet sky, constellations winking like old comrades, the tents beckoned soft, Elias shared with the crew, now a family forged in frost and fire, the flap tied with a prayer against the night's wandering winds, inside a haven of rustles and scents, leaves strewn for bedding crackling faint under weight, a nod to autumn's gift, bedrolls unrolled lazy, quilts aired in the day's breeze to shed the road's grime. Elias Bluebell won a soft island amid the rough. The cool seeped gentle, not winter's claw but a whisper that urged the old ways. Hot stones fetched from the fire's heart, wrapped in wool to cradle their glow, tucked at feet chilled by fallen dew, along sides for the flanks guard, one even at the neck for thoughts to thaw. Elia's feeling the stone's pulse steady his own, a borrowed sun against the dark. The huddle formed easy, bodies in a loose arc like roots entwined, heads pillowed on packs for the rise of ground. Elia's nestled, twixt Jem's lanky jest and Tomas's growing frame. Rolf's warmth a distant hill radiating, Garrick opposite spinning yarns of autumn hunts in his youth. Leaves fall like warnings, lads, layer early, for the wind turns sly when the sun sleeps short. Limbs draped casual, a net of shared sighs, breaths mingling in rhythms learned from winter's school, turning the tent to a breathing beast alive with quiet life. Clothing woven wise for the season's shift. Linen shifts changed daily toward the sweat sour, wool hose light but layered at ankles where damp pooled. Tunics of coarser weave to trap the day's lingering sun. Mantles of lighter wool now, fur pockets emptied for trade but linings soft with rabbit down. Coifs loose around necks like scarves half-tied. Feet in boots lined fresh with dry leaves for insulation's crunch. Drink sealed the eve, cider mulled gentle with honey drizzled gold from a comb found in the copse, passed in turns with toasts to absent. Bess's milk in mother's hand, Elia's murmured, the sip of fire soft in belly, easing muscles to melt. The camp's hush wrapped them, distant owls hoot a lullaby low, leaves pattering like rain unborn, Jem humming a harvest tune, words tumbling soft. When apples ripen red and winds sing low, we soldiers dream of fields we used to know, voices weaving in. Tomas's clear as a flute's call, Pip's tentative adding youth's bloom, Rolf's hum a bass earthbound, the harmony a veil drawing sleep near. Slumber came like leaves drifting down, Elia's floating on tides of memory, dreams of plows turning soil black and rich, the girl's hand warm in his under harvest moons, the huddle's heat a gentle tide lapping worries away, body curling loose in the season's mild hold, stones cooling to a sigh but fellowship's fire eternal. Yet midway a rustle stirred, deer browsing near, not foe but nature's guest, Elia's peeking flap to watch shadows graceful, returning to the weave with a smile, sleep unbroken till dawn's pale light. Morn broke with mist coiling like smoke from fairy pipes, thorns horn a soft awakening, men rising to shake leaves from cloaks, tents folded damp but swift, fire's embers coaxed for porridge, oats simmered with cider's lees for tang, nuts cracked and stirred in for crunch, Elia's supping slow, the warmth a bridge from night to day. The march pressed north, roads winding through vineyards where grapes hung heavy, some plucked for wine that lightened packs and hearts, villages wary but trading, loaves for arrows, cloth for tailies. Elia's bartering his French dagger for a woolen scarf dyed autumn red, wrapping it close against the breeze's bite. Days blurred in golden haze, camps in hollows sheltered by hillsides ablaze with turning maples, tents pitched amid ferns browning at edges, fires fed with vine prunings that snapped aromatic, suppers of grape-stewed pork from snares, tender and sweet, talk of winters past and springs to come. One eve in a river glen, waters murmuring silver under moon, the chill sharpened sudden, autumn's teeth showing faint, tents clustered by the bank for water's ease, Elia's crews canvas a low dome reflecting ripples, floor layered with fern fronds soft as eider, bedrolls piled with extra mantles from the discharge bounty. Stones heated long in the blaze, wrapped thick to combat the damp's creep, placed abundant. At limbs' ends, torso's core, even one shared under chins for breath's warmth. Huddled tighter now, bodies spooned in line for the glen's draft, Elia's middle ward, Jem's back to his chest, Tomas forward with Pip, Rolf and Garrick flanking ends like bookends stout. Layers deepen, hose doubled full, tunics tucked beneath mantles belted tight, scarves wound necks like armor soft, leaves stuffed in boot tops for dry's guard. Mulled wine from the vines, spiced with foraged cloves from a hedge, steamed in cups, toasting to the river's song and roads untrod, the glow chasing evening's shadow. Songs rose fuller, a round of vintner's airs learned from locals, voices carrying over water like bridges built of sound, sleep a deep pool. Elia's dreaming of floods gentle washing fields clean, the huddle a raft of flesh. A night rain followed, pattering steady, but ditches dug wise kept the tent dry, the sound a cradle's rock. Northward still, through forests where mushrooms sprouted white under oaks, camps in clearings ringed by toadstools like fairy dances, fires of acorn husks for smoke's veil, suppers of fungi sautéed in fat with bread sopped, earthy and warm. Warmth's arts evolved, leaves layered under bracken for loft's lift, stones augmented with heated nuts in pouches for snack and heat, huddles with tailies extended, garrick on autumn fairs, gem on city harvests wild with pickpockets' glee. One clash came unbidden, French stragglers ambushing at a bridge, bows singing short and sharp, Elia's arrow felling a sergeant bold, the skirmish one but thorn wounded slight in thigh, bound with herbs from the wayside. The camp that night a vigil of care, tents close for watch, fires low but constant, warmth shared with the captain's fever broke by broths hot and huddles gentle. Healing came slow over eaves, camps in abbeys ruined where stones held day's sun, tents within cloisters hush, layers with monks wool begged for piety's trade, songs psalms twisted merry. As leaves fell thicker, chilled deep into winter's prelude, discharge papers clutched like talismans, the channel neared with gales whipping whitecaps, a final camp on cliffs overlooking foam, tents lashed extra against gusts, fires wind-broken with turf walls, suppers of fish grilled salt from the surf, flaky and bracing. Stones baked in coals, wrapped double, huddles in windrows tight, layers full winter's kin, first scraps reclaimed, ale hot with roots dug deep. Songs defiant against the roar, sleep wrested from the wild, dreams of homes thatch calling loud. Ships waited at dawn, hulls creaking promise, the crossing rough but landfall sweet. England's shore misty green, Elia's stepping firm, the crew parting with embraces fierce. Thorns clap on back a farewell warm. Keep the huddle in your heart, lad, plow or peace, warmth's the thread. Homeward trek final, through downs rolling gold faded, camps sparse as autumn waned. Elia's alone now but echoes many, tents solo but rituals kept. Fire small, stones self-warmed, layers his own guard, dreams full of mates' laughs. The farm gate creaked welcome, best nuzzling true, mother's arms a huddle vast, the quilt's bluebells blooming real, winter's lullaby sung soft by hearth, the soldier's tale woven into earth's gentle rhythm, defying not just cold but time's quiet grasp, a story relaxing eternal in history's fold. Yet as snow dusted first, whispers of new calls stirred faint, king's horns never silent long, but for now peace plowed deep, the thread unspooling slow in autumn's lingering glow. Elia's rising with the sun's timid peak over the thatched roofs of his village, the light slanting gold through frost-laced windows like fingers beckoning gentle from a dream. His hands, once raw from bowstring's bite, now gripping the familiar haft of the plow, turning soil black and crumbly under the harrow's teeth, the earth yielding soft after summer's kiss, releasing scents of loam and last year's hay that mingled with the wood smoke curling lazy from chimneys nearby. The farm was a humble kingdom, fields rolling gentle to the hedgerows where birds flitted like confetti from a forgotten feast, best the cow lowing content from her stall, her warm flank a simple joy as Elia's milked her at dawn, the pail filling steady with foam-topped cream that promised porridge thick and golden for the morning's meal, his mother humming an old tune over the hearth, her voice a thread woven from years of winter's weather, stirring the pot with a wooden spoon worn smooth as a lover's palm. His sister, now budding into womanhood with braids the color of ripening wheat, tended the kitchen garden, plucking late carrots orange as autumn suns, her laughter light when Elia's teased of French lasses with hips like the rolling downs. Ye of stories enough for a minstrel, Eli, but mind the plow don't wander like your eyes did abroad. The days settled into a rhythm soothing as a river's murmur, from cockcrow's call to the evening's hush when lanterns flickered like fireflies in the gloaming, Elia's mending fences with axe and mallet, the wood chipping clean under strikes that echoed his heart's steady beat, sharing bread and cheese with neighbor lads who gathered round the gate. Their talk of harvests and hearth-tales, a balm, chasing shadows of steel and snow from his mind. Yet autumn's gold faded swift to winter's silver shroud, the first flakes falling soft as eiderdown on the eve of All Hallows, blanketing the fields in hush, turning paths to crisp carpets that crunched under boots like whispers of old campaigns. Elia's waking to the world's white veil, breath plumbing in the chill air that seeped through chinks in the walls like unbidden guests. But the home's warmth was a fortress kind. The hearth banked high with logs from the copse, flames dancing merry in the grate, casting shadows that played like children on the rafters, his family gathering close as the days shortened, piled under quilts stitched thick with wool from the sheep's spring shear. The bluebell won his sister's gift, now shared among them, its faded threads a talisman blooming stories of tents and trials when the wind howled mournful outside. Suppers grew heartier against the cold's advance. Stews simmered slow in iron pots hung over coals, mutton from the ewe-culled wise, carrots and onions from the root cellar, thickened with barley meal and seasoned with thyme plucked dry from summer's hoard, the aroma filling the low-ceilinged room like a lover's sigh. Elia's carving slices from the loaf baked fresh that morn, passing them hot to hands cupped eager, talk flowing easy of village news, the miller's new babe, the squire's hunt gone awry with a boar that charged like a French knight, laughter bubbling warm as the cider mulled with cloves, and a sliver of apple kept crisp in the barn. Nights wove the deepest peace, the family huddling in the hall's one great bed, a vast affair of straw-ticked mattresses layered deep, eiderdowns piled like clouds captured, bodies pressed in kinship's curve, mother at center like a queen, Elia's to her left with sister right, the curve of forms sharing heat like the tent's old wheel, breaths mingling in rhythmic tide, turning the chamber to a living quilt alive with sighs and snores soft. Elia's lay still, listening to the world beyond. The wind's low moan like thorns' distant bellow, the crackle of embers dying slow, the patter of flakes against the shutter like arrows hushed in flight, his mind drifting to camp's echoes, Jem's sly grin in the fire's glow, Garrick's gravelly yarns of borders bleak, Rolf's bulk a wall unyielding, Tomas's hum sweet as nursemaids lull, even Pip's wide-eyed wonder. Yet here in home's burrow, the warmth was sweeter, laced with the scent of baking bread and kin's familiar musk. No steel to scramble for in dark alarms, just the steady drum of hearts entwined. Dreams came gentle, fields plowed endless under kinder suns, the girl's smile from village fairs curving soft in moonlit glades, her hand warm in his as they wandered lanes lined with hawthorn white. But woven through were camp's quiet arts. The hot stones glow at his feet, now the bed warmer of baked clay from the oven, wrapped in flannel to cradle against belly's hollow, its heat a pulse mingling with his own like a comrade's breath. The layers learned abroad adapted home, linen shift next to skin to wick the night's sweat, wool nightgown loose for air's trap, quilts wait a mantle fur-lined in fancy, socks of homespun wool binding toes against the floorboard's chill. Mornings broke with the cock's bold crow piercing the frost, Elia's rising first to stoke the hearth, coals coaxed to flame with bellows puff, the fire's roar a faithful friend pushing back the dark, breaking fast with porridge steaming in bowls wooden, sweetened with honey drizzled gold from the hive's last yield, milk fresh from Bess foaming rich, the family supping round the table scarred by years, talk of the day's labors, felling wood for Yule logs, mending the byre against deeper snows. The sister teasing of suitors come calling with eyes like Elias' own, blue as the bells on his quilt. The plow lay idle now, winter's rain turning work to woodcraft and weave, Elias chopping faggots in the copse where oaks stood skeletal, axe biting deep with swings that sang of old march's rhythm, stacking the bundles high for the hearth's endless hunger, his breath plumbing thick in the air sharp as new steel. But the labor kindled inner fires, sweat beading warm under layers of tunic and cloak, the wool trapping heat like a secret hoarded. Afternoons found him in the barn, mending harnesses with awl and thread, the scent of hay dry and sweet a summer's ghost, Bess's stall a nook of warmth where he curried her coat till it gleamed, her nudge affectionate against his side like Rolf's shoulder in the huddle, sharing crusts of bread with the farm cat who curled purring on his lap, her rumble a song low and content. Village life wove him back gentle, gatherings at the alehouse where lanterns swung from beams black with soot, tankards foaming with brew from the malted barley of harvest past, mates from boyhood days slapping backs with welcomes rough but true. Elias the archer, home from slaying kings, tell us of the frogs and their fancy wine. And he spun tales softened by time, of tents rising like mushrooms in frost-kissed fields, fires coaxed from Flint's kiss, huddles where heat sought heat like pups in litter, laughter rippling when he mimed Jem's sly toast or Thorn's bellow wrapped in frost, the room warming not just from ale but from shared mirth that chased the evening's chill. One such night, snow falling thick as curds outside, the door banged open to admit old Will the Smith, face ruddy from wind's whip, bearing a flagon hot mulled with nutmeg rare, begged from a trader's cart, "To warmth's weave, lads. May your beds hold closer than any tent in Poitiers mud." And they drank deep, voices rising in chorus to a ballad of soldiers' return, words tumbling like dice. From fields of steel and snow's white bite, we wander home to hearth's delight, with layers thick and kin's embrace, defying winter's frosty face. Elias joining bold, his tenor clear amid the bass rumbles, the harmony a shield against the storm's distant howl. Homeward he trudged then, path lit by lantern's thrift, snow muffling steps to whispers, the farm's glow a beacon through the flakes, slipping into the hall where embers waited patient, stirring them to life with poker iron, flames leaping grateful to light the chamber's nooks. The bed called soft, family already nestled deep, quilts tented high like canvas peaks, Elias shedding boots at the threshold, hose rolled down to reveal feet pale but whole, slipping between sheets warmed by bodies prior, the press familiar as the old wheel, mother's sigh a gravelly welcome, sister's murmur sleepy of dreams half told, the curve of forms a living dam against the night's advance. He traced the bluebells in the dark, fingers light on threads frayed from travels, whispering thanks to the fates for this burrow of blood, the hot brick at the footboard's end, baked that eve in oven's maw, wrapped safe in towel thick, seeping glow up his calves like a comrade's stone from riverbed. Layers settled, shift soft against skin, nightgown woolen trapping air's defiant puff, quilts wait a crown of comfort, no coif needed in home's close air but a cap of knitted yarn pulled low over ears tuned to the wind's vain plea. Sleep lapped gentle, a tide from warmer seas, Elias drifting on waves of hearth memories, dreams blending farms' fields with camps' hollows, Bess grazing amid skeletal oaks, Thorn milking a Garin with beard frosted white, Jem bartering apples for French spices sly, Garrett carving bows from plow handles gnarled, Rolf stacking hay bales tall as ramparts, Tomas drumming snowflakes into rhythm sweet, Pip chasing hares through hedgerows white, the faces merging in a tapestry vast. Warmth not of flesh alone but spirit's quiet fire, the night's chill prowling harmless at the door, baying unheard. Yet even in slumber the body recalled, curl tight toward the heat's core, breathe deep to fan the inner ember, hold the thread close against unravel's tug. Dawn pried gentle at the shutters, gray light filtering like mist through weave. The cocks call a horn softer than thorns, Elias stirring last, the bed's warmth reluctant to release, but rising to the hearth's demand, poking coals to roar, water set to boil for wash and tea of herbs dried, chamomile soothing for mother's joints, mint sharp for his lingering cough from channel gales. Breakfast followed, eggs from the henhouse cracked into the pan sizzling fat, bacon rashers curled crisp over flames, bread toasted dark on the gridiron, the family breaking fast with spoons clinking bowls of milk pudding sweet with last honey, talk turning to Yule's prep, the log to drag from copse for the blaze that would crown the feast, greens to twist into wreaths for Door's kiss, the mummers play where Elias might don soldier's guise once more, jesting of French defeats to village delight. The day unfolded in winter's lazy weave. Elia's venturing to the wood with sled and saw, snow deep but powdery underfoot, trees standing solemn in their white cloaks, the axe swinging true to fell a birch slender for kindling fine, limbs cracking like old bones under the blade's kiss, stacking the haul high on the sled's runners, hauling back with breaths heaving plumes, sweat warming despite the bite, the labor a meditation where mind wandered free, to the tents flap tide against gusts. The fire's conspiratorial glow, the huddles shared pulse like this family's now. Afternoons in the byre, forking hay to beasts that stamped grateful, their breath steaming communal, Elia's sharing crusts with the mare who nuzzled his palm like a mate's clap, the barn's timbers creaking soft in the wind's push, a sanctuary where he whittled whistles from willow wands for Tomas's echo, the notes piping clear as the boy's old hum. Evenings brought the village's pull, paths trod deep to the hall where candles guttered in sconces iron, the reeve calling muster for snow clearing on the lanes, shovels biting white drifts till backs bent weary, but reward in mulled ale served steaming from cauldrons black, spiced with ginger root grated fresh and cinnamon bark begged from the peddler's hoard, tankards passed with toasts to health and hold. May your roofs shed the snow like tents shed the rain, and your hearts burn brighter than any camp flame. Elia's clinking mugs with Will the Smith, their talk delving deep into craft's kin, how the forge's bellows mimicked the huddle's breath, heat built layer by layer like wool on flesh, the hammers strike a rhythm akin to drums beat in battle's hush. One eve, storm brewing thick with clouds bruised purple, the hall filled to rafters with souls seeking shelter, fiddles scraping lively airs that set feet tapping despite the chill, tailies spun round the blaze central, old Gran recounting fairy whispers in winter woods, the miller jesting of frogs in his wheel turning French, Elia's adding his thread soft. Intense afar, we wove warmth from naught but will and wool, huddling tight as this hall now. Fire small but fierce as Yule's own log, drawing nods grave and eyes wide, the yarn pulling Jem's ghost into the glow, his sly grin imagined in the flames' dance. Homeward through the squall's first lashes, snow whipping sideways like lace torn wild, Elia's leaning into the gale's shove, lantern swinging mad to light the way, the farm's door a portal to peace, shaking flakes from cloak like burdens shed, the hall's hearth roaring welcome from mother's hand, supper waiting, pie of pigeon pasty cased, gravy rich with onions caramel sweet, potatoes mashed creamy from the pit, the meal a feast that warmed from core out. The bed's ritual followed, family easing into its vastness with sighs of day's end, quilts fluffed high, the brick renewed hot from oven's belly, placed tender at the foot where toes curled grateful, Elia's slipping central now, sister's head on his shoulder light as a dream, mother's hand clasping his like anchor's grip, the press a symphony of skins and souls, breath sinking slow to the embers fade. Layers for the deep. Shift linen aired, gown woolen buttoned snug, quilts folds a sea to drown in, cap woolen tugged low, the night's hush broken only by the storm's wild harp without, sleep stealing soft as thief turned friend, Elia's voyaging in visions vast, plows drawing furrows through snow-swept fields where comrades tilled beside, tents pitched amid the furrows for night's rest, fires of plowshares melted down, huddles blending kin and crew in endless wheel, the girls' laugh mingling with Tomas's hum. Warmth eternal defying season's whim. Weeks turned in White's embrace, Yule cresting like a wave gentle, the log dragged home with neighbors' pull, rope straining but voices merry in carols lift. God rest ye merry gentlemen, let nothing ye dismay, the blaze consuming it slow over 12 days, sparks flying like stars to the rafters black, feasts of goose fat roasted till skin crackled gold, stuffing of sage and sausage savory, puddings boiled in cloths tied tight, ale wassailed round with bowls spiced and hot. The mummers tumbling in with bells and bladders, Elia's capering as the French king dethroned comic, the hall roaring delight till cheeks ached from grins. Gifts exchanged humble, sister's mittens knit tight for his hands scarred, mother's kerchief embroidered fine, his whittled spoon for her pot's stir. But the true bounty in the circle's close, song swelling choral till rafters rang. Sleep that night profound under quilts heaped with wassels glow, dreams of endless Yule where winters bowed to spring's decree. Thaw came hesitant, snow melting to rivulets that gurgled underfoot, mud sucking at boots like earth's greedy mouth. Elia's turning the plow once more, furrows dark and promising, seeds sown with hands steady. The soil's cool kiss a contrast to the hearth's memory, but the arts of warmth lingered in the eve's chill. Layers for the barn's watch, fires banked for the buyer's beasts, huddles imagined in the bed's lone nights when family scattered to tasks. Spring bloomed full then, greens pushing bold through the black, lambs bleating in the fold, Elia's courting the girl with walks by the brook where willows trailed fingers in the flow, her hand warm in his like a stone unearthed hot. Whispers of tents and trials met with eyes soft as summer pools. Ye have seen the world's white bite, Eli, but here's the green to heal it true. Betrothal came under maypole's dance, ribbons twisting bright as hopes, the village feasting on meats and mead till dawn. But as summer waned to autumn's gold once more, the king's horn sounded faint in missives from the hall. New levies for borders restless, whispers of Scots stirring north. Elia's name scratched on the roll reluctant, the farm's piece a fragile bloom. Yet he marched not alone in spirit, the thread of warmth unspooling still, packing his bluebell quilt for the tent's claim, layers learned etched deep, huddles promised with old mates if fates aligned. The lullaby's song a relaxing echo through seasons turn, defying not just freeze but farewell's pang. History's weave gentle and grand in its hold. Years cycled then in the tale's slow unfurl, Elia's returning betwixt calls with tales richer, children born to the farm's hearth, a son with Jem's sly eye, a daughter humming Tomas's airs, teaching them the arts in play, huddles under quilts for games of hide, stones baked for pies of mud, songs sung to chase the dark, the family's bed a tent vast where winters met with laughter's shield. Old age crept soft as snow's first dust, Elia's gray as Garrick's beard, rocking by the fire with grandchildren curled at knee, spinning yarns of Poitiers fields and home's deep peace. Warmth's no fire alone, we ones 'tis the press of hearts, the weave of wills, turning cold to kin's kind glow. His voice gravel now but warm as mulled ale. The bluebells on the quilt faded full but fervent still. The final winter came quiet, snow falling thick as veils on the window. Elia's easing into the bed's embrace one last eve, family round him close as the huddles wheel, the brick hot at his feet, quilts heavy with love's layers, breaths shared in farewell's hush, dreams calling him to fields eternal where comrades waited by fires unending, tents pitched under suns that never set, the thread complete in history's relaxing fold. A soldier's lullaby sung soft through time's vast night, but even as the veil thinned between worlds, Elia's spirit lingered like embers banked low, a gentle glow that seeped into the farm's timbers and the soil's deep black, whispering secrets of warmth to the winds that carried them onward through generations, yet unborn, turning his tale not to an end, but to a river's bend, flowing wider into the village's veins and the land's quiet heart. Dawn broke pale that morn, the snow hushed in drifts soft as forgotten sighs, the family stirring slow from the bed's vast warmth, mother's hand lingering on the hollow where Elia's lay still, her tears tracing paths like meltwater down cheeks lined with years, the sister, now wed and mother herself, clutching the bluebell quilt close, its threads frayed but fierce, folding it gentle over his form as if to tuck him one last time against the cold's vain grasp, the son, young Tom with eyes sly as Jem's ghost, standing tall but trembling, his small hands fisting the shift linen that still held father's scent of earth and hearth. The village mourned simple, no grand dirge but awake in the hall where lanterns swung low. Tankards passed in silence broken only by murmurs of a good man. Elia's warm as his tailies, steady as his plow. Neighbors bearing loaves baked dark and cheese veined sharp. Pies of pigeon flaky with crusts golden. The air thick with pipe smoke curling blue and the faint tang of ale mulled hasty for comfort's sip. Will the smith leading a song soft, words borrowed from Elias' own. From fields of steel and snow's white bite, we wander home to hearth's delight. With layers thick and kin's embrace, defying winter's frosty face, voices joining ragged but true, the harmony a bridge carrying his spirit skyward like sparks from the Yule log's final crackle. Burial came under the old oak in the copse, ground softened by thaw's first nudge. The parson intoning psalms over the mound fresh, earth padded smooth with shovel's care. The bluebell quilt laid atop like a banner furled, snowflakes dusting it light as blessings. The family standing close in cloaks woolen, breaths plumbing shared against the breeze's bite. Tom vowing quiet with fist to chest. Father's warmth in me now, plow and peace, I'll hold the thread. Spring unfurled hesitant that year. Greens pushing bold through the black furrows, Tom turned with hands young but sure. The plow's haft warm from Elias' grip still etched in the wood's grain. Seeds sown with whispers of old arts. Layer the soil deep, lad like hose on flesh. Trap the sun's gift against the night's sneak. Advice gleaned from father's yarn spun by the fire. The farm blooming fuller under his care. Bess's daughters lowing in the byre with milk foaming rich. The sister, Leela now, wed to the miller's boy, tending the garden where carrots thrust orange fists from loam. Her own babes toddling chubby through the rows, giggling at butterflies blue as the quilt's bells, preserved now in a chest cedar-lined for tailies to come. Summers stretched lazy, hay meadows waving gold under suns that baked the thatch dry. Tom stacking bales high with neighbors' pull, sweat beading warm on brow despite the breeze's fan. Evenings finding him by the brook where willows trailed fingers lazy in the flow, courting a lass with hair chestnut like Jem's mop. Her name Rose, eyes sparkling mischief as she teased. Ye of your father's sly, Tom, tell me of the tents he spoke, where warmth wove from naught but will, and he spun the thread gentle. Of huddles tight as this village now, fires coaxed from Flint's kiss like love from shy hearts, her hand slipping into his like a stone hot from hearth. The betrothal sealed under hawthorn white with maypole's ribbon twist. Winters returned in cycles soft, snow veiling the fields like quilts heaped high. The farm's hall a haven where kin gathered thicker. Leela's brood piling the bed vast with Tom's new wife and their wee ones. Quilts layered deep with Elias' bluebell one at core like a talisman true. The brick baked nightly in the oven's maw, wrapped in flannel thick to cradle against bellies hollow or feet chilled from chores. Bodies curving in the wheel's echo, breaths mingling rhythmic as the old cruise. Mother's tailies now Leela's to tell by the hearth banked with logs birchsweet. Your grandsire wove warmth from frost's claw, huddle close, sing low, and the night bends gentle. Supper's heart in the dark, stews of hare snared wise simmering slow with roots from the cellar, turnips white as snow, parsnips sweet as rose's kiss, thickened with oats from the bin, bread loaves crusty broken hot, cheese rind-red from the ewe's yield, the family supping round the table scarred deeper by time, talk flowing of harvests past and lambs to come, Tom carving slices deliberate, passing to small hands cupped eager, laughter bubbling when a babe smeared gravy on chin like a mustache French. Nights deepened the bond, the bed a sea of forms entwined, Tom at center now like Elias once, Rose to his left with daughter wee, Leela opposite with her own, the press a living tide where heat sought heat unbidden, sighs weaving with snores soft. The wind's moan outside a distant horn turned lull, dreams drifting shared. Fields plowed endless with Elias' shadow guiding the furrow. Tents pitched amid the furrows for rest's claim. Fires of family faces glowing eternal. Mornings broke with the cock's call bold, Tom rising first to stoke the coals, flames roaring grateful to light the chamber's nooks, porridge bubbling thick with milk fresh and honey drizzled. The kin breaking fast with spoons clinking wood, talk of the day's turn. Felling faggots for the blaze's hunger, mending the byre against deeper drifts. The babes piping questions of grandsire's wars. Did he huddle with giants, duh, like Rolf the Hill? And Tom nodding grave, aye, we won, and sang him down with songs like ours now. Labor filled the light, Tom chopping wood in the copse where the oak stood sentinel over Elias' mound. Axe biting deep with swings rhythmic as March, stacking bundles high for the sled's haul. breaths plumbing thick but inner fire kindled by toil, sweat warming layers of tunic wool and shift linen. The wool-trapping airs puff like defiance learned. Afternoons in the barns hush, forking hay golden to beasts stamping grateful, their steam a communal haze, Tom whittling flutes from willow for the children's play, notes lilting clear as Leela's hum, sharing crusts with the farm dog who curled loyal at his feet, rumbled deep like Rolf's grunt of old. Village life pulled gentle, paths trod to the hall where beams sagged lower under years, lanterns oil-lit swinging from hooks iron, the reeve calling for snow shifts on lanes deep drifted, shovels scraping white till backs bowed weary, reward in ale mulled steaming from pots black, spiced with ginger grated and cloves whole, tankards clinking with toasts to the line unbroken. Elias's thread in Tom's hand now, warmth's weave stronger for the spin. Will the smith, gray as Garrick's ghost, led choruses bold, words evolved from father's ballad. Through snow and steel, through plow and peace, we hold the heat that never cease, with kin for huddle, fire for friend, winter's end in love's amend. Voices swelling choral till rafters trembled, the harmony a river carrying Elia's echo downstream. One storm eve, gales howling wild as channel crossing, the hall brimmed with souls huddled close, fiddles scraping airs merry that set toes tapping faint under tables scarred, grand's tailies of fairy rings in drifts white, the miller, Leela's man, jesting of Scots like frogs but woolier, Tom adding his weave soft. Grandsire taught the tents right, stones hot as this ale, layers thick as our kin now, huddles where cold slinks shamed away, drawing sighs knowing and eyes misty, the yarn pulling thorns bellow faint into the glow. Homeward through the blizzard's lash, snow stinging like needles blunt, Tom leaning stout with Rose's arm linked, lantern mad swinging to pierce the veil, the farm's door a threshold to balm, shaking flakes furious from cloaks like old foes fled, the hall's hearth roaring from Leela's hand, supper steaming, pasty of eel from the brook, flaky and savory with leeks wild, potatoes roasted crisp in drippings, the feast warming core to crown. The bed's call followed, kin easing into its sprawl with days and sighs, quilts fluffed vast, the brick renewed glowing from oven's kiss, placed tender where limbs met cold, Tom slipping central guardian, Rose's curve a spoon to his back. Babes piled forward giggling faint, Leela's brood flanking like wings, the symphony of skins a dam against night's flood, breath sinking to embers hush. Layers for the profound, shifts linen fresh-scented, gowns woolen buttoned wise, quilts a sea heavy with love's down, caps knitted tugged low, the gale's harp without a vain serenade, sleep lapping like brooks flow gentle, Tom voyaging visions where Elias walked the furrows beside, plow in hand with bow slung easy, tents for the siesta's shade, fires of family tailies unending, Rose's laugh blending with Leela's, warmth a sun internal defying dusk's creep. Yule crested then in the cycle's turn, the log dragged communal from copse deep, ropes taut with neighbors heave, voices caroling lift. Bring a torch, Jeanette, Isabella, the blaze devouring it slow over night's 12, sparks ascending like prayers to rafters sooted, feasts of boar roasted whole till crackles sang, stuffing apple sweet and sage sharp, pudding suetrich boiled blindfold in basins, wassail bowled hot with boughs of rosemary, the mummers capering bells jingling. Tom as Elias the archer dethroning winter's king comic, the halls roar a tide of joy till dawn blushed rose. Gifts humble heart deep, Rose's scarf dyed rose for his next guard, Leela's mittens for the babe's small fists, Tom's carved cradle for the next to come. But bounty in the circle's clasp, song's choral swelling till snow melted faint outside, sleep that Yule profound under heaped quilts wassailed, dreams of endless tide where seasons bode harmonious. Thaw nudged green, mud yielding to furrows dark, Tom sowing rye with hands callous true, seeds whispering promise like father's voice, the farm thriving fuller, lambs frisking in folds sun-dappled, Leela's garden bursting kale and kale's kin, babes toddling to pluck peas pod sweet, their laughter a hum tomastru. Summers lazed long, hay waves crashing under breezes sigh, Tom stacking with Rose's pitchfork dance, sweat shared and glances sly. Evenings brookside where willows whispered, children splashing barefoot in shallows clear, tales spun of Elia's eve by fire's driftwood crackle. He huddled with stars for blanket, wee ones, sang the frost to sleep. Betrothals bloomed then, Tom's eldest son, Elia's named anew, sly-eyed and strong, courting under maypole's whirl, ribbons vivid as hope's green, the village feasting lamb roast and mead flowing till stars wheeled drunk. Yet autumn gilded swift to winter's hush once more, the king's missive faint but insistent, borders bristling with Scots wool-clad ire, Levi's called for the North's chill march, Tom's name scratched reluctant on the roll, the farm's piece of bloom fragile as first snowdrop. He packed the bluebell quilt sacred for tents right, layers etched soul deep, wool hose doubled, mantles fur-trimmed begged from Will's forged trade, marching not lone but spirit-laden, echoes of Elias huddle in every step, comrades old like thorns shade joining ranks weathered, the thread unspooling wider still. Years wheeled in the saga's gentle spin, Tom returning betwixt horns with scars new but tales richer, grandchildren piling the bed's vastness, teaching arts in cradle songs. Huddle we, like grandsire's wheel, warmth from hearts that never kneel. The hall's hearth eternal witness to winter's met merry, spring sown hopeful, Elia's lullaby a river feeding the land's deep well. Generations layered then like quilts heaped, Elia's the young turning plow with bow's memory, his son weaving tales by Yule blaze, daughters knitting caps for babes unborn, the farm evolving slow to stead with byre stone built against gales, the oak sentinel sprouting leaves defiant, mound moss-clad but bluebells pushing blue each spring. Village grew thread by thread, hall beams renewed with timber copse felled, lanterns oiled to candles beeswax sweet. The reeves call now for fairs and feasts grander, but warmth's core unchanged. Huddles in halls storm-lashed, mulled ales spiced rarer with nutmeg from trade ships bold, songs chorused vast. From Poitiers mud to plow's true line, we hold the heat through frost divine, with kin's press and fire's kiss, winter's night in peace's bliss. One eve deep in the cycle's heart, snow veiling thick as veils ancestral, the hall brimmed with lines unbroken, Tom gray as oak bark, Elia's the young at his knee with great grands, fiddles scraping airs evolved from ballad's root, grands Leela's line spinning yarn of the first tense right. Your great-great-grandsire wove it from naught, stones river smooth, huddles pup tight, layers onion-wise, turning freeze to friend's side. Eyes wide as Pip's once, the weave pulling ghosts gentle. Jem's quip sly in the flames leap, Garrick's gravel in the wind's low, Rolf's bulk in the beam's groan, Tomas's hum in the babe's pipe. Homeward through drifts sculpted moon-mad, families linking arms like chains of old, lanterns clustering glow-warm, the farm's cluster now stead and cottage kin, doors portals to hearths roaring, suppers shared vast, goose fat crisp with apples baked within, puddings plum-rich steamed blind, the feast's a tide drowning day's chill. Beds sprawled generational, quilts bluebell cord layered endless, bricks baked communal in ovens brick-built, placed tender in the wheel's vast curve, bodies spooned in lineage's arc, breaths a river flowing time's bend, sleep profound as earth's core, dreams merging furrows with fields eternal, Elia's the first walking with all who followed, tents for the siesta's shade under sun's kin-lit, warmth a legacy defying dust's claim. Cycles spun fuller then, spring's bursting riot green, summer's hay-scented lazing long, autumn's gold harvest merry, winter's white-hushed met bold, the thread a tapestry vast, farms linking to manors mild, villages to towns timber-framed but the lullaby's whisper core, huddles in halls new-hewn, fires turf-fed fragrant, layers wool to silk traded far, songs chorus to cathedrals echo faint. Elias mound under oak eternal sprouted bluebells wild each thaw, pilgrims pausing plow hand to trace the weave. Here's the soldier who taught the frost to flee, children plucking bells for wreaths Yule bound, the tale etched in the land's gentle fold, relaxing through ages turn, a saga sung soft in history's endless night, warmth's river flowing unyielding, unspooling into tomorrow's veiled soft as first snows kiss. Yet as moons waxed eternal, a new horn whispered faint from borders wild, empires stirring like storms unborn. But the thread held, kins huddle a shield timeless, the lullabies fold embracing all, defying not just winter's grasp but time's quiet unravel, woven forever in earth's warm heart. The farmstead stones now softened by moss's gentle cloak, the oak sentinel over Elias mound sprouting branches wide as arms embracing the sky's vast blue, its roots delving deep like fingers clutching the soil's secret warmth, feeding the bluebells that bloom defiant each spring in clusters blue as forgotten banners, drawing bees humming lazy in the pollen's gold dust, children from the stead's cluster. Now a hamlet humble with cottages thatched anew, chimneys puffing smoke like sigh's content. Plucking the blooms for posies twisted in ribbons faded but fervent, whispering tailies passed down like heirlooms polished. Great-grandsire Elias wove the first huddle, gainst the frost's sly creep, tents rising like kin's hands clasped, fires coaxed from flint's shy kiss, layers thick as love's own weave, turning night's bite to morning's balm. Tom, gray and bent but eyes sharp as the plow's edge, sat by the hearth in the hall expanded with beams hewn from the copse's kin, rocking slow in a chair whittled smooth by his own hand year's agon. His son Elias the young, now sire himself to a brood sturdy, stirring the pot of stew simmering slow over coals banked deep, mutton chunks tender from the ew's wise cull, carrots scraped orange bright from the root pit's hoard. Onions sliced thin to weep savory tears into the broth thickened with barley pearled and thyme sprigs dried from summer's lazy bough, the aroma wafting through the low room like a lover's breath warm on neck, filling the rafters black with soot from winter's countless, the family gathering close as dusk deepened to indigo's hush. Rose, Tom's wife, silver-haired but smile sly as her chestnut locks once, passing bowls wooden scarred by spoon's kiss, her voice a murmur soft as falling leaf. Eat hearty, loves. The cold prowls early this turn, but the threads warm as ever. The children, a tumble of limbs and giggles, Elias wee ones with eyes bluebell true, Leela's lines descendants piping questions sharp as thorns, supped with elbows jostling merry, gravy-dripping chins like badges worn proud, talk bubbling of the day's gleam. The eldest boy, young Garrick named for the bowyer's ghost, boasting of snares set clever in the hedgerows where rabbits hopped white-tailed. The girl Thomasine humming a tune half-remembered from Leela's lips, words lilting faint. Through frost and fen, we wander free with mates for hearth and stars for tree, her small voice threading the air like needle through cloth, drawing nods grave from Tom who added gravel deep. Aye, lass, your great-great-grandsire sang it first in tents afar, huddling tight with Rolf's bulk and Jem's jest, stones hot as this stew's heart warding the night's thief. Suppers stretched long in the hall's glow, lanterns oil-lit casting pools amber on faces flushed from fire's kiss, bread loaves broken crusty with hands calloused from plow and pitchfork, cheese wedges rind-red crumbled into bowls for savor's slow chew, cider pressed from the orchard's gnarled boughs foaming tart in Jack's dented, mulled gentle with honey drizzled, and a pinch of cloves begged from the peddler's cart that rumbled yearly through the lanes mud-sucked, toasts raised clumsy but true. To Elias weave, the warmth that binds blood to bone, season to season, turning winter's howl to home's own song. As embers settled to conspiratorial glow, the beds called from the chamber adjoining, a sprawl vast as the old one's echo, but partitioned now with curtains woolen for privacy's shy veil, mattresses straw-ticked layered deep with feathers plucked from geese Yule-fatted, quilts heaped high, the bluebell core at the heart like a relic sacred, its threads mended generation by generation with stitches fine as whispers, surrounded by newer weaves of down and wool traded from wool combers in the town grown nearby. Where markets bustled with bolts of cloth dyed, vivid from woad's blue kiss, or madderroot's red fire. The family eased into the rite with reverence soft, shedding cloaks woolen heavy with day's damp, boots kicked to the threshold where they steamed faint by the hearth's linger, hose rolled down to reveal feet pale, but poolsing with labor's heat, shifts linen changed fresh from the press where Leela's daughters ironed smooth with flat irons heated slow, Gown's woolen night donned loose for air's trap, but buttoned wise at cuffs and collars against the draughts sneak through chinks daubed with clay renewed. The brick baked that eve in the bake oven stone maw, wrapped tender in flannel quilted with scraps from old mantles French pilfered in tailies, placed strategic at the bed's foot where toes curled grateful, its glow seeping up calves like a comrade stone from Avon riverbed long agone, one even shared under chins for breath's warming puff, the children piling first in a tumble of limbs small, giggling as quilts tented peaks like canvas flaps tied, Tom and Rose flanking ends like anchors stout. Elia's the young central with his own curling clothes, Leela's line opposite in their curtain nook, the press a living wheel vast, bodies spooned in arcs generational, grand to great, sire to son, daughter to dam, limbs draping casual like vines entwined, breaths mingling in tides rhythmic learned from Elia's first huddle, turning the chamber to a beast breathing quiet, alive with sighs content and snores rumbling low like distant thunder wrapped in wool. Tom lay still amid the weave, listening to the world without. The wind's low keen like a horn faint from borders wild, the crackle of last coals dying patient, the soft sift of snow against shutters oiled to shed the wet, his mind drifting to the threads unspooled. Elia's tent rising ghost-like in memory's mist, fire's faithful friend against the dark's advance, layers upon layers like the rings of oaks eternal, the huddle's kinship quiet as this bed's now, no steel to scramble for but only the steady drum of hearts linked through time's gentle turn. Dreams lapped soft as brooks flow and thaw Tom voyaging visions, where the farm blended boundless with Poitiers fields faded, plows drawing furrows through snow-swept ridges where archers stood eternal, tents pitched communal for the siesta's shade under suns kin-lit, fires of family faces glowing unquenched, gems grinned sly in the flames leap teaching young Garrick the snare's sly knot, Garrick the old's gravel echoing in Elia's the young's counsel on Bow's bend for harvest's reap. Rolf's bulk manifest in the bed's press profound, Tomas's hum sweet in Thomasine's pipe that wove through the dream like thread through bluebell's bloom, warmth a river internal defying empire's stir or moon's wax eternal. Sleep held profound till dawn's gray fingers pried at the shutter's edge, the cock's call a clarion soft blending with bird song tentative in the flake's hush, Tom stirring last from the bed's reluctant release, the quilts folding slow like waves receding gentle, rising to the hearth's demand with poker iron in hand. Coals coaxed to roar with bellows puff rhythmic as march, water set to boil in kettle black for wash and tea of herbs foraged, elderflower dried for Rose's cough lingering, nettle sharp for his own joints ache from winter's stacked. Breakfast followed in the hall's lightning gloom, eggs cracked fresh from the henhouse's clutch into the pan sizzling drippings saved, bacon rashers curled crisp over flames low, bread toasted golden on the gridiron turned, porridge bubbling thick in bowls earthen with milk foaming from the buyer's morn yield and honey comb cracked for sweetness wild. The kin breaking fast with spoons clinking wood scarred deeper, talk turning to the day's unfold. Faggots to fell for the blaze's endless maw in the copse where oaks whispered ancestral, the buyer to muck against deeper drift's threat, young Garrick piping of snares checked at first light with 2 hares gray-furred for the pot's claim, Thomasine humming her tune to chase the chill's last linger, laughter bubbling when a babe smeared honey on cheek like war-paint French in jest. Labor claimed the light's gift, Tom venturing to the wood with axe half-worn smooth as Elia's plow once, snow powdery underfoot crunching like old campaign's brittle earth, trees standing solemn in white cloaks bowed, the blade biting deep into birch slender for kindling fine that snapped like tailies half-told, limbs cracking under swings rhythmic as thorn's horn long faded, stacking the hall high on sleds runners oak hewn, hauling back with breaths heaving plumes thick but inner fire kindled by toil's honest sweat, layers trapping the warmth, tunic woolen coarse over shift linen aired, cloak mantle light slung shoulders broad, mittens rabbit-lined begged from Leela's weave. Afternoons found him in the barn's dim hush, forking hay dry-scented to beasts stamping grateful in stalls deepened with straw fresh, their steam a haze communal like tense breath shared. Tom whittling spoons from hazel wands for the babe's small grips, curves smooth as Rose's palm in sleep's spoon, sharing crusts rye-baked with the farm dog. Now a hound deep-chested like Rolf's echo, curled loyal at feet, rumble profound like grunt of old in Huddle's wheel. The hamlet pulled gentle with paths trod deep in drifts sculpted wind-whipped, to the hall where beams renewed with timber copse fresh sagged under weights of souls gathered, lanterns tallow-dipped casting flickers warm on walls daubed lime-white. The Reeve, Elia's the young's cousin by Leela's line, calling muster for lanes clear with shovels iron-tipped biting white till arms quaked weary but backs bent companion, reward in ale mulled steaming from cauldrons copper-beat. Spiced with ginger root grated pungent and cinnamon bark curled from peddler's spice sack exotic, tankards foaming past with clinks resonant. To the thread's hold, Elia's gift through Tom's hand to ours, warmth's river flowing unspooled, empire's horns but whispers faint gainst kin's own song. Will the smith's kin, a lad burly with hammer-calloused palms, led choruses bold evolved, words layered richer. From borders wild to plow's true furrow, through steel's clash and snow's white burrow, we weave the heat with hearts entwined, winter's night in pieces bind, huddles vast as halls we build, fires fierce as love's own guild, voices swelling from hall's heart to rafters trembling, harmony a tide carrying ghosts gentle, thorns bellow in the bass deep, gems quip sly in the tenor's lift, the weave pulling the crew's shades into the glow's embrace. One gale eve, clouds roiling black as empire's storm, the hall brimmed overflow with hamlets huddled, farms linking loose to the stead's core, fiddles scraping airs merry twisted from ballad's ancient root, grand's line, Leela's great-grand, spinning yarn vast of the first tense dawn. Her forebear Elia's pitched at low-slung beast of canvas oiled, flap dragon-mouthed wary floor bracken-whispered secrets summers, bedrolls quilt-thick frayed from night's hundred, stones river-smooth sighing in her fire-wrapped sacking tender, huddles wheel-spoked with heads center breath shared, layers tree-ring wise, linen wick-wet, wool trap-air, fur full frost bear-like, ale-mulled spice-begged steaming, songs rover lilting roads unlost, sleep tide-lapping edges wakeful, warmth rebellion quiet gainst decrees winter. Eyes saucer-wide as pips once upon a time, the tail threading the air like bluebells stem through soils black, drawing sighs profound and murmurs knowing, the ghosts vivid. Rolf's wall bulk in the beams grown steady, Garrick's gnarl fingers in the fiddler's bow pull wise. Homeward through the tempest's lash furious, snow stinging cheeks like bees forgotten spite, families linking arms chain strong like old companies rank, lanterns clustering glow defiant. The steads cluster now stead and cottages kin clustered, doors oaken portals to hearths roaring bold from hands young, suppers shared tidal, boar pasty cased flaky with gravy onion caramel, eel from brook potted savory with leeks wild foraged, potatoes mashed creamy drippings rich, pudding suet steamed blindfold in cloths tied prayer knots, the feast's a dam drowning day's fierce chill in savor's flood. The bed's right profound then, kin easing into sprawls partitioned but vast in spirit's eye, quilts bluebell cord layered oceanic with down eider plucked and wool carded fine, bricks baked communal in ovens brick domed, placed tender in the wheel's generational arc grand to great, limbs draping vines ancestral, breaths river flowing times bend gentle, sleep earth score deep, dreams merging steads furrows with fields mythic, Elia's the first plowing beside lines endless. Tense for the harvest's eve rest under moons kin waxed, warmth legacy unyielding as oak's root, defying dust's claim or empire's unborn roar. Cycles spun grander in the saga's unhurried whirl, spring's riot bursting greens riotous, lambs frisking folds sun-gilded, furrows turned communal with plows iron-shod ox drawn, seeds sown broadcast with hands linked in rhythm old. Summer's lazed eternal hay waves crashing breeze side, stacking bales sky high with pitchforks dancing merry, evening's brookside splashed bare limb in shallow's crystal, tailies Elia spun by driftwood fires crackling soft. He layered life like hose on flesh, Trap the sun's kiss, gainst night's thief, huddles where cold slunk shamed as fox from fold. Autumn's gilded harvest hardy, vines heavy grape clustered for wine pressed foot trod in vats oaken, apples windfall cord for pies cinnamon kissed, feasts in fields stubble golden with meats roast spit and mead honey flowing till stars reeled tipsy. Winter's white hushed bold met, snow veils thick as quilts ancestral, halls expanded timber framed to towns timber laced, hearths turf fed fragrant peat sweet, layers wool to linen fine traded from looms gild woven, songs chorused to spires stone hewn faint in distance growing. The thread broadened river-like, farms to manors mild-maned, hamlets to towns market bustling with carts creaking wool bales and spice sacks. The reeves call fairs grander with mummers gilded bells jingling, peddlers hawking cloaks fur-lined from borders tamed, but core warmths unchanged. Huddles haul-lashed storm bold, ales mulled rarer nutmeg-flecked from ships sail-winged, ballads layered epic. From Poitiers ridge to Plough's black line, through Scott's wool ire and Empire's sign, we hold the ember kin-forged bright, winter's grasp in love's own light, tents to beds, wheels to worlds wide, warmth's river undenied. Elia's mound, oak-shrouded, sprouted bluebells wilder each thaw's nudge, pilgrims' plowpaws tracing the weave's faint etch. Here's the archer who sang frost fled, children plucking bells for Yule wreaths thorn-twined, the tale soil inscribed, relaxing through epic's soft shift, saga chorused in history's night vast, warmth's flow unquenchable, unspooling into dawn's veiled tender as thaw's first drip. Generations heaped quilt thick then, Elia's the young turning furrow with Tailey's bow bent, his son Tomine weaving yarns hearth-side Yule blazed, daughters carding wool for babes unweaned, the stead evolving to grange stone-walled gale-proof, oak sentinel leafing defiant, mound lichen-laced but bells thrusting blue perennial. One cycle's crest deep, snow sculpting drifts moon-mad as empire's dream, the town hall beams copse fresh renewed, brimmed lineage unbroken, Tom bent as reed but voice gravel true at knee of Elia's the young's great-grand, fiddles evolved lute-strung airs ballad-rooted, grand's line, Leela's vast, yarn-spinning tents genesis anew. Elia's pitched the beast low-slung, walls taut gust-ward, flap-wary dragon's maw, floor bracken meadow secret, bedrolls fray-quilted seamstress rough, stones pebble-smooth fireside sacking cradled, huddles circle-head center feet spoke, layers tree strata, linen sweat-soft, wool shepherd-thick air-pocketed, fur wing-draped faux-bartered, coif's rabbit-cup ear-motherly, wraps rawhide foot damp-bound, ale jack-dented vintage. No but lover-sigh warm, spices hoard-begged cinnamon clove Yule distant. Song's ballad half mead maiden with steel one, sleep thief, not tide-edge lap, warmth bloom ember flesh fire fellow shared, cold hound spectral flap bay but burrow brother purchase no, saucer's eyes pip wide, tail air threading bluebell stem soil pierce, sighs profound murmurs kin knowing, ghosts vivid pull, thorn colossus male half sword sky challenge and bass thunder, gem pixlide dagger hilt betrayal cold in tenor fox grin, the crew's shades glow embraced eternal. Homeward drifts wind-whipped families chain arm old rank echo, lanterns glow cluster defiant, towns cluster stead cottage grange men are conveyed, doors portals hearth roar young hand bold, suppers tidal vast, goose crackle fat apple stuffed sage sausage, eel pasty leek savory wild, potato roast crisp drip rich, pudding plum steep cloth prayer, feasts damn day chill savor flood drown. Beds right profound kin sprawl partition vast spiriti, quilts core bluebell oceanic down-nighter wool card fine, bricks communal oven dome bake, wheelark generational tender place, grand great limbs vine ancestral drape, breath's time bend river flow gentle, sleep core earth profound, dream stead furrow mythic field merge, Elia's first plow beside line endless, tents harvest eve rest moonkin wax shade, warmth legacy ocrute unyielding, dust empire claim defy or storm unborn roar. Cycles grander saga whirl unhurried, spring's riot green burst lamb fold frisk, sun gild furrow communal plow iron ox draw seed broadcast hand link rhythmol. Summer's eternal hay wave crash breeze I stack bale sky pitchfork dance merry evening brook splash bare limb shallow crystal tay lilias driftwood fire crackle soft layer life hose flesh trap sun-kissed night thief huddle cold slink shame fox fold autumn's gold harvest vine grape heavy wine foot trod vat token apple windfall core pie cinnamon kiss feast field stubble meat roast spit mead honey flow starial tipsy winter's white hush bold met snow quilt ancestral hall expand timber frame town timberlace hearth turf peat fragrant layer wool linen fine loom guild trade song chorus spire stone hewn distance grow thread river broaden farm manor mild man hamlet town market cart creek wool bale spice sack reeve call fair grander mummer guild bell jingle peddler hawk cloak fur line border tame core warmth unchange huddle hall lash storm bold ale mull rare nutmeg ship sailwing ballad layer epic Poitiers ridge plow black line Scots Willier empire sign hold ember can forge bright winter grasp love light tent bed wheel worldwide warmth river undenied Mound Elias oak shroud bluebell wild thonudge pilgrim plowpaws trace weave faint etch archer sing frost flee child pluck bell yule wreath thorned wine tail soil scribe relaxing epic soft shift saga chorus history night vast warmth flow unquench unspool dawn veil tender thaw first drip heap generation quilt thick Elias young turn furrow tail bow bend sun tomine weave yarn hearth yule blaze daughter card wool babe unweaned stead evolve grange stone wall gale proof oak sentinel leaf defiant mound lichen lace bell thrust blue perennial crest cycle deep snow veil thick veil ancestral town hall beam copse fresh renew brim lineage unbreak tom bend reed voice gravel true knee Elias young great grand fiddle evolve lute strung air balladroot grand line Leela vast yarn spin tent genesis anew Elias pitch beast low slung wall taut gustward flap wary dragon maw floor bracken meadow secret bedroll fray quilt seamstress rough stone pebble smooth fireside sacking cradle huddle circle head center foot spoke layer tree straighta linen sweat soft wool shepherd thick air pocket fur wing drape faux barter coif rabbit cup ear mother wrap rawhide foot damp bound ale jack dent vintage no loverside warm spice horde beg cinnamon clove yule distant song ballad half mead maiden with steel one sleep thief not tide edge lap warmth bloom ember flesh fire fellow share cold hound spectral flap bay burrow brother purchase no saucer eye pip wide tail air thread bluebell stem soil pierce sigh profound murmur kin no ghost vivid pull thorn colossus male half sword sky challenge bass thunder gem pick slide dagger hilt betrayal cold tenor fox grin crew shade glow embrace eternal homeward drift windwhip family chain arm old rank echo lantern glow cluster defiant town cluster stead cottage grange manor kin vein door portal hearthroar young hand bold supper tidal vast goose crackle fat apple stuff sage sausage eel pasty leek savory wild potato roast crisp drip rich pudding plum steep cloth prayer feast damn day chill savor flood drown bed right profound kin sprawl partition vast spiriti quilt core bluebell oceanic downnighter wool card fine brick communal oven dome bake wheelark generational tender place grand great limb vine ancestral drape breath time bend river flow gentle sleep core earth profound dream stead furrow mythic field merge Elias first plow beside line endless tent harvest eve rest moon kin wax shade warmth legacy ocrute unyielding dust empire claim defy storm unborn roar